and I'm moving people around to
The
be in the proper
exciting
order.
bit where chat gets to see us not be prepared for the stream.
Whoops.
It's great.
I was as prepared as you possibly can be.
I'm just going to say as well, I mean, I'm quite tired and I have a slight, I think, cold. So I saw your shirt, Dark Owl, which has kind of a rainbow on it. And I just read World's Gayest. And that's
Yes,
That's what I read as
That
well.
happens all the time. World's gayest producer.
Oh no, the woke mind virus has got me, obviously.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna just show up. I'm gonna be like, I'm just gonna have flags everywhere in the room. It's just of varying colors and styles.
Has Pride Month ended yet? I mean, we are in November. I'm assuming it's still going. It's like a 6-month thing, isn't it?
Isn't
June,
Dark
July,
Hour
August,
Isn't there like
always
6
going.
Pride months now?
Probably.
I feel like it's always Pride year, so it's like the
It's
entire.
Pride year is the next logical
It's
next
the
step.
Pride decade, baby.
They can go to war with Black History Year when that becomes a thing. But yes, welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello, chat. Hello, panel. I think Drinker is on his way. He's probably blotted out on the floor unconscious somewhere, but he said he'd be here at some point. This is BSUP number something. I think it's 46. Yes.
Yes.
We have things to speak about and people on which to speak. So obviously D23 has been a thing. Hollywood has done something. I haven't caught up on that story yet. Arcane season 2 is a thing. It's been interesting. Yeah, expecting to have some hot takes on that. I don't hate it. I'm not the most impressed by it as yet. So we'll see how we get on with that. But I guess we'll save that for a little bit later, so people don't immediately hate everything we have to say. And Dark Hour, particularly, who I'm reliably informed hates Arcane like completely. Dark Hour really
I don't
thinks
hate
Arcane's one
it.
of
I
the
just said I
worst
don't
things
think it's
ever
as
made.
amazing as everyone says.
That's tantamount to hating it.
It is. It's as good as hating it. Crucify him, chat. But yeah, where
Actually,
are
the
we
worst thing you can be is
starting?
wishy-washy.
That is true. That is true. With what are we starting? Is my question, I suppose.
Well, the first slide is D23 Brazil, if you will. Oop.
Oh, good timing.
Wow, and Drinker like on the money with that one.
Hello.
Hello.
Good
No.
evening.
Fashionably late today.
Well, we were fashionably late, and then you were even more fashionably late. So
Wow, yeah.
between us all, I think it's about the most fashionable stream on the internet at this point.
Truly, I am a dedicated follower of fashion. So, yeah, it is good to be amongst you fine gentlemen this evening.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Yeah, we are just about to kick off. I mean, I'm behind on most of the D23 stuff, but I think we are kicking off with the D23 stuff, which has had announcements from all of the Disney properties, some of which might even get made, but I don't know which of them.
Yeah, I can't wait for them to add another dozen or so projects to the Star Wars lineup of stuff that will never get produced. But yeah, it's nice to toy with ideas like this.
It is. What is Di, have you got any more slides for the D23 thing? Because I'm, yeah, as I say, behind on exactly what we're covering for this one
I mean,
and
do
in
you
what
want
order
me
we're
to
doing
do
it.
this
What comes first?
Slides, or do you want me to just read off everything that they announced? Because I can go either way with this one.
I think topically would be a good way to do it. I mean, should we start with the Star Wars stuff? Is that the easiest place to start? Just because it's one of the only times we'll ever get to talk about it until Kathleen Kennedy cans it again. So this is this the chap who has written, by my count, the 3 of the worst X-Men films and one of the best ones?
Yes.
He's now in charge of
one of the best.
Correct.
Yes.
He has
One of
quite
the
the checkered history as a producer and writer and stuff. He has done some good stuff. I think he did Logan. He produced the Deadpool trilogy. He produced The Martian. So, you know, he's done some good stuff. But then he's also done X-Men Dark Phoenix.
and the Last
So-
Stand
And the New Mutant.
and
The
one of
New
the other ones.
Mutants and Apocalypse, I think, as well.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Ooh. Didn't he do Dark Phoenix as well?
Yeah, he went.
Yeah,
Because I
that's-
went down the list of his stuff and looked at the ones he's produced of a slightly better record than the ones he's attached as a writer on. The ones he's written tend to be quite bad. I think, with the exception of Days of Future Past, he was a writer on Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, and I think also Last Stand. But he produced some of the other ones which are better. His name is escaping me. What the hell is this guy's name again? It's
Simon
Simon
Kinberg.
Kinberg.
that one. Yes, whatever everyone just said at the same time.
Blah, blah, blah.
And yeah, so he's attached as, theoretically at least, the writer of a trilogy, another Star Wars trilogy of movies.
Yay!
Will we ever see them? That's the first
No.
question.
Well, he's an
No.
illustrious company. He's joining the likes of Ryan Johnson, Taika Waititi, Kevin Feige, Weiss and Benioff. Like, truly, the movers and shakers in Hollywood.
That's a
all
who's
who
who.
are. Oh yeah, everyone who's been attached to do Star Wars stuff that'll never actually make anything for them. So it's great. I just wish they would do something crazy, like wait until they have something actual tangible to show us before they start announcing things. It would just make things so much easier, and wait until the project's got to a certain level of development before you announce it, rather than like Kathy had an idea that popped into her head and we're just announcing this as if it's going to happen.
Is this the
At
kind
least-
of stuff to just see what people feel like when, or just to see what fan reaction is when they announce?
Because it feels
something?
like it feels like a public brainstorming session now, the D23.
Yeah.
Like instead of having like a script prepared, they're just like, we might do this. What do you guys think?
It's the, I guess it's like the throw shit against the wall thing and just see what sticks. And it might be to create this like superficial facade that like Star Wars is this vibrant franchise, so they can say, look, guys, there's so many projects in development. Like this brand has never been healthier because we've got so much stuff that we're making and everyone's really excited for it. And it doesn't really matter if any of it actually gets made. Who cares? You can create the facade that it's doing well.
Yeah, they announced that it might be I read somewhere that it might follow the Skywalker saga again, and it kind of feels like they just say that or leak that a little bit so that they can be like, right, do you guys want that?
Well, I
Yeah,
read the other thing
okay with
because
that.
it was one of the outlet Collider, whichever outlet ran with it, said insiders are saying that this may be the start of a new saga. And I just think like the thing I remembered most from the Rise of Skywalker trailer is that at one point it says the saga will end. So
Yeah.
like it's not an insider opinion that it's starting a new saga. That is what they told us they were going to do. Whether
To
they
be
changed
fair,
their mind since is another question.
I was going to say, like, Lucasfilm aren't exactly well known for setting plans and sticking to them. Certainly in recent years anyway. So I guess theoretically anything could happen, but I'm just curious how it's going to carry on the Skywalker saga when all the Skywalkers are dead now.
But Rey is a Skywalker now.
yeah,
She
Rey's a
committed identity.
Yeah.
If you identify as one, I guess that makes it true. Sure.
There was the other rumor is that she's going to be playing a role similar to Obi-Wan Kenobi in her movie, which I think means that by the time that movie comes out, she will be as old as Alec Guinness was in A New Hope. So she can actually be old, wise woman.
I guess that's what they're going for. It'll be so funny if they wheel out like 35-year-old Daisy Ridley to try and pretend like she's this wise mentor figure, to a younger generation. And it's like, what the fuck do you have to impart in terms of wisdom? Like, you don't know anything.
She hasn't been taught anything. She's a Mary Sue. Like she
Yeah.
didn't go through the trials and tribulations of Obi-Wan. She was never part of the Jedi Council. She didn't see the Council and the Republic fall. Like she has no wisdom to impart on anybody. She doesn't know anything.
One of her students is really struggling and comes to her for help, and she just says, "Well, have you tried being good? Because it worked for me."
Well,
That's
yeah,
how
it's like all her wisdom would just be like, I don't understand. Like, why can you not do this thing? Like, whenever I try stuff, it just kind of happens. Like, isn't it the same for you?
Don't forget, she has the sacred Jedi text that Luke never actually read. Don't forget that detail.
Because if I was on an island with nothing else to do for like decades, I'm pretty sure even if it was the most boring book on the planet, I would still find time to read it just out of sheer desperation. I guess he didn't. So I do wonder if they're gonna can her solo movie and just fold it into this potential trilogy.
I would have, because it's a strange structure otherwise, because why would you not do that? I assumed that her next movie would be at the start of whatever the next saga happens to be. Certainly if they are having her as the supposedly older and wiser mentor figure, it kind of implies that she's teaching someone who might be the focal point of whatever the new trilogy is. I always assumed that is what they would do, but it does sound from this like they have them envisioned as separate productions.
I mean, anything, I guess, could happen at this point, because to expect a common sense approach to storytelling is not going to be applicable to Lucasfilm at this point. But it's funny when they refer to her as having like an Obi-Wan Kenobi role in this going forward. That would imply that like she's the mentor figure that eventually is going to pass the torch and die. They will never have the balls to kill off Rey on screen. Never.
I mean, maybe
That
as a
wouldn't be allowed.
noble sacrifice, I could see them potentially doing that, and then she could do the Obi-Wan. She could literally do Obi-Wan and be a Force ghost in the next 2 movies afterward, which would be appropriately lacking in imagination if that is the model they're going with. I want them to, yeah, like you said earlier, it would be nice if they gave us a very, very firm handle on something rather than just, here's the next announced trilogy. We've now got 5 of them. One of them might theoretically get made at some point. The only cast iron guarantee is that we're getting Mando and Grogu next year. Is it next year or 2026? I think it's next year.
2026. That's
Oh,
coming out.
shit, it's another year. Damn it. And then the rest are just, purely Schrodinger's films.
Yes, and even with Mandalorian and Grogu, like, I'm sure it will be a passable film that will just carry on the legacy of the TV show for what it's worth. I just don't think enough people are going to care about it. Like, there's a vast difference between having a fairly successful show on Disney Plus that's really going to appeal to that hardcore Star Wars audience versus having mass market appeal. And I do not see how a Mandalorian movie is going to have that.
I mean, my impression was that actually the viewership had declined anyway from Mando on Disney Plus. So whether they can even carry the audience that they might have had after season 1, are there going to be enough people going? I suppose if you stick Baby Yoda in enough marketing materials, a certain number of people will inevitably turn up, which is depressing, but it is how it works.
Yeah, I assumed that was their plan all along, was to push that little fucker.
With the new film, are people going to have to have watched the first 4 seasons of the TV show to understand what's going on? Because that's going to disenfranchise a huge segment of the mainstream audience.
I would assume yes. I mean, it would be not very sensible for them to do that for the reasons you've said. I mean, it's the kind of the problem that Serenity had with Firefly, in the sense that Firefly was a really good show. Not enough people watched it. It got cancelled. It was concluded in a film, and the film didn't perform particularly well precisely because not enough people watched the show to begin with. And it's not always easy to pick up in a cinema for a general audience a story that's been told certainly over multiple seasons. And it would be almost more sensible for them to treat it as a soft reboot, but I don't think they will do that. So you will have cameos from Bo-Katan, and you'll have cameos from Moff Gideon will probably be back. I can see it wrapping up the whole Mandoverse storyline, and most people in the cinema will be like, oh, I remember him from Breaking Bad. That was good, but why is he in Star Wars now?
Bless your optimism when you say they'll have cameos from Bo-Katan. Bo-Katan will be leading this movie, I guarantee. Like, it's Disney Star Wars. We know exactly why they'll do it that way. Of course they will.
It is possible to make a movie that's a standalone, that's also a continuation for fans of the TV show. It's not like a direct comparison, but like Avengers, the first movie made like $1.6 billion, and no movie from the franchises before it had made even close to that. So a lot of people saw that movie that hadn't seen, everything leading up to it. So it's a possibility.
I think what they'll do is probably have like a little opening montage that will just quickly summarize the events of the TV show. Like Mando will be given some kind of voiceover just explaining it or whatever. And, the show is so simplistic anyway that actually really works in their favor, where you could pretty much sum up the events of it in a few sentences. It's like, hey, I'm a bounty hunter. I was tasked with retrieving this little guy, and I decided he was super cute, so I decided to keep him with me. Then a bunch of people tried to take him off me, and I've been fighting for him ever since. That's it. Like, roll the movie.
That is technically all you do need. I'm trying to think actually from that, what do you really need of the story from season 1 or season 2 or 3 of Mando? And there's not a huge amount.
None of it matters.
The Mandalore stuff, it's pointless, which is a great sales pitch for those series on Disney Plus.
I mean, the title crawl will take care of it all for us.
I don't understand
I think
why they
your
wouldn't
internet
use
is
this as
stacking out,
a
Dark. Sorry.
way to okay, hold on. I'll back out and come back in.
You just can't get the stuff these days.
You can't. I know. It's just, there we go. Well, he's the only person who knew what was coming up on the topics. So
oh God, no! We need him
in the dark.
Get him back. All is forgiven. This is actually going to be new for me as well, because I I haven't been keeping up with D23. Like, apart from the announcement of the new trilogy.
Is it
for
better
Star
now?
Wars.
Yeah,
You
I
tell us.
think so. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Yeah, I guess so. Aside from Star Wars, what else did we have from D23? There was the trailer for, I think, did the trailer for Captain Falcon and the Red Hulk, did that come out? Yes, there it is.
Oh yeah,
This looks interesting. Any
that's the most
thoughts?
acting that Harrison Ford has done in years.
The emote.
Yeah, I said this backstage, but how is Captain Falcon able to absorb the punch of the Red Hulk when he doesn't have any super soldier serum? It does not make any sense.
I mean, in theory, the shield is made of vibranium, so it should absorb the kinetic energy of the punch somehow.
Yeah, but
That's
even,
my understanding of how it
It
works.
does
But like,
disperse. It does have a dispersal.
so in theory, like even a normal person holding that should be able to absorb it because all of the energy just goes into the vibranium.
it absorbs most of it, but like even Captain America, when he gets hit in the shield, he flies back quite often because of the way that the energy disperses, as Dark Owl is saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't care about this movie. I can't emphasize how much I don't care about this. I don't think I've even like looked at the trailers really. It just seems so pointless.
It is also possible for vibranium to break. A lot of people don't realize that. There's a whole storyline where I forget the exact circumstances, but the shield starts to break and it creates a chain reaction throughout the entire world. Everything made of vibranium starts exploding, heading toward Wakanda, which would have been a great thing to try and do and maybe create a problem, but they're not going to do that.
I completely agree.
The
That's
shield break in
Wakanda.
the shield broke in Endgame, did it not?
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
so that should have already.
I think Thanos has like a special vibranium cutting blade or something that allows him to get through it.
Do we know anything about the story for this movie? I mean, has it even finished reshoots at this point? I mean, I'm assuming it must have done if it's coming out in February. But this was one of those ones that had troubled production, didn't it? And I don't know if we know anything about the story, where this is supposed to be going. What's it set? Is it drawing on a comic at all?
I don't know because I started reading this era of comics in 2015 and it was really bad. So I just stopped reading it. So I don't know if they're directly adapting.
The Red Hulk storyline doesn't make sense for this. Like the whole Red Hulk storyline was that it was like a who is the Red Hulk? It was like a who's who. And he was basically going around killing everybody. He killed Abomination. He had this gigantic pistol that was comically large, and so this has nothing to do with his introduction in the comics at all. So I don't know. I stopped reading long before Falcon became Captain America, so I don't really know about that.
Yeah, the Sam Wilson as Captain America era was not very good in the comic books at all. That whole era was not good. No.
Yeah. And they've sort of ruined the surprise with Red Hulk because in the trailer you see Harrison Ford transform. So I don't know why they did that.
I like there's a comment here from Hikira who says they just didn't want to hire Mark Ruffalo again. I mean, who could blame them, really?
Has Mark Ruffalo even been seen since the election? I kind of assumed that he just exploded with rage at this point.
Yeah, I think so. Like him and Mark Hamill, we need to get people to check on them daily, I think.
Didn't he and others say they were going to leave the country? It might be in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like they did in 2016.
There's been a lot of celebrities who say that. What is it? Alec Baldwin's been saying he's going to leave the United States since George Bush was elected in 2000. So
yeah, but then he just takes out his rage on other people. So
for a film crew. It's such a weird threat. I said this in my video. It's like, okay, so you're going to move to a different country. Like, why? Like, why is the average person going to be like upset by that? Even like your diehard fans, why are they going to care? Like, unless you threaten to stop making movies or something. Like, okay.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, I'm going to move to a different country. So it's not like we hang out on a daily basis or anything.
I care where your characters are. I don't really care where you live. I assume it's a mansion, like good progressive actors do. But yeah, so for this one as well, am I right in thinking it's casting my mind back to the distant past of last year? Is this a similar-ish release window to Ant-Man 3? Was that another February?
Yeah.
Is that common for supposedly big ticket Marvel movies do they often release at this time of year, or is that a relatively recent thing? I assumed that it was sort of the tail end of a phase period where people weren't necessarily expected to go and watch.
Marvel movies typically kick off the year in May.
Well,
May
they've been
usually
doing
kicks off
this.
the summer movie season.
They've been doing this since at least Black Panther that came out in 2019, and it was in February.
February.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that because
Big
February is like
surprise.
Black History Month or something?
Well, then Captain Marvel did it as well, I believe.
Right. Okay.
And then, yeah.
Well,
then
they had
Ant-Man.
Captain
No,
Marvel,
no.
they had to split the
Captain
two
Marvel didn't come out until like April or something, or May.
Oh, right.
It was still
So
in
they've done
theaters
it
when
2 times.
Endgame came out.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
isn't January usually and the start of February the month where production companies will dump their
Yeah. January,
films that they
February.
don't think are going to do well?
Yeah, so January and February and August, September are all dump months. So generally speaking, things that come out then are not expected to do well.
Oh, yeah. Captain Marvel came out March 8th.
Yeah, because that was my read of the earlier phases in particular, and that's another problem with Marvel. I don't even know which phase this movie's. Oh, is this a new phase or is this the same one?
No, I think this is still 5.
5. I said 6. Fuck.
We've
I was
all,
wishful
yeah,
thinking.
because there hasn't been like a mainline MCU movie for a while now. We're all kind of like, we're all losing track of what's actually happening and why. And we're at that point where we don't really care anymore. So,
Yeah.
But then there are the two. I don't know if any of this came up in D23. I think there are 2 Avengers movies due, aren't they? And they're in quite quick succession. You've got, is it Secret Wars and
Doomsday.
Doomsday?
Thunderbolts?
Oh, Thunderbolts is also coming out. I was just thinking,
Thunderbolts,
yeah. I was thinking of the big ticket Avengers movies, but yeah, Thunderbolts also, I think, got some footage from D23. But I don't know anything about that either, which is bad. This is supposed to be my job. I don't know what the hell any of these movies are about, or who's in them, or why they exist. The lack of the mainline Avengers movies is becoming a problem just because it's very hard to structure this sort of... It's hard to structure a multiversal narrative anyway, but if you don't have sort of the singular big ticket items which unite all of your disparate plot threads, then I think this effect is exactly what those films are designed to avert, but we haven't had them. So phase 4 just bleeds seamlessly into 5, which is bleeding seamlessly into 6, because there's nothing really to tell you this is why any of it matters.
Right,
maybe Doomsday will solve that problem, but I don't know if that's due out until, is that 2026 as well?
Yeah, and they're going to try and solve the problem by, I think, introducing Reed Richards as like the main character, which is weird because they're doing it like two phases too late. Phases 1 through 3 had Iron Man as the central character essentially, and this one has not had one. It doesn't have any lead character or even like anyone that would arguably be one.
It's so funny that they think Pedro Pascal is going to be the centerpiece of like the MCU going forward.
Yeah, well, at least to wrap this up, like I don't know what their plan is, but if you're gonna have Doctor Doom, it has to be Reed Richards as as his foil. So I don't know what's gonna happen.
Well, didn't they specifically say that they're not going to do the traditional Reed Richards and Doctor Doom dynamic of them fighting against each other going forward?
They did?
Yeah.
Huh?
Which begs the question, why even have them? Like,
That's like having Batman without Joker, Green
Joker, yeah,
Goblin
I know,
without
I know.
Spider-Man. Like, what's the point? I just don't understand it. Like, that's Doctor Doom's the only way Reed Richards is cool. Like, otherwise, he's not even he's a boring, cringe nerd.
Well, that's
No, the
not
worst
nice to say
kind of
about
nerd.
me.
So are we still doing multiverses with all of this, or are we trying to wrap that up? Is that what the MCU is trying to put an end to? Like the great experiment in multiverses is over now, or what?
I think everyone is shitting on it. Every superhero film that's come out, or the last 3 have all taken shots at multiverses. Venom 3
Yeah,
took a
even
shot at
Venom.
yeah, even
multiverses.
Venom.
Yeah, that was truly the high point of that movie for me.
Yeah.
But if even Venom is telling you that your idea sucks, then really you should be revisiting that idea quite quickly. Doesn't Secret? I'm not that familiar with the comics. Does Secret Wars not rely on the multiverse though? In some respects, isn't that going to be one of those sort of everyone comes together and has a big fight movies?
Probably. It could be like that. Could theoretically be the thing that wraps it all up and rationalizes everything into one universe again. Not sure.
Yes, Secret Wars is supposed to be like a major reset where they take characters from each universe and battle it out, and I think that's how they're gonna hopefully try and kickstart the new MCU, whatever shape that will take.
Yeah, I think it's their way of bringing Captain America and Iron Man back as well, so that they can have these characters interact with the X-Men and stuff.
Because it's supposed to be their DC's Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? Like that was the point of that storyline as well.
I mean, they should really make use of Robert Downey Jr. while they can, because based on that Zoom call that I saw just before the election, like none of those guys are looking particularly healthy anymore. Like, damn, that man's wasting away. It's like, I don't know if it's a vegan diet or what.
I've been saying that if they're bringing him back to the MCU, even if it's as Doctor Doom, because it's Secret Wars in the multiverse, he will be Iron Man again at some point throughout these two movies.
Yeah. But he's got that look about him now where it's like, I don't even know if you can physically like pass yourself off as Tony Stark anymore. Like you've you've aged so much, and you're like 60 years old now. Like, I don't know, man.
They'll just go the Natalie Portman route and like CGI some muscles on him.
To this day, there's people convinced that she worked out really hard and got in shape for that movie. It's like, oh, bless your cotton socks.
Yeah, she was taking roids. That's right.
Oh, sure, yeah. She was benching like 300 pounds easily. Like,
she's getting her deliveries of HGH.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It would be quite funny if they do this big ticket. Yeah, we're going to close off the multiverse thing in Secret Wars, and just nobody remembers to get Benedict Cumberbatch from inside the multiverse, where he's been since the beginning of Phase 4. Like, where has Doctor Strange gone? That was supposed to be important when he disappeared into the portal with what's her name, and we've just not seen him since, have we? I don't think ever.
No.
If he gets left behind in there, and it's just that was a character that we had, and we ran out of ideas for him to do, so he's off somewhere else. He's in Dimension C137, whatever. Yeah, I'm ready for either some massive conflagration where lots of people die and everything gets reset, or I'm ready for it all to end. Which would be better? Are we collectively all ready for this just to stop, or is there still any hope that this will salvage it?
I've been ready for this to stop for about 4 years now.
Yeah.
And it's funny now because like I've enjoyed this little holiday that we've had from MCU movies. You know, you used to have to slog through like 3 of them per year, plus God knows how many TV shows. And we've had a little break, and the only one we got was Deadpool and Wolverine, and you know, that was fun for what it was. Like I had a lot of enjoyment just watching that and just goofing around. And the thought of getting back into it now, it's like going back to work after being on vacation or something. You know, it's like you have to try and summon up some kind of energy to get back into it again, but you know you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, like they have to, in the script, deal with the fact that an audience is coming in where they have to be like, yeah, we know you have to know all this stuff so we can get through these movies, but we promise once we get through them, it'll be a clean slate. Like that's what they have to try and communicate.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder now, but because it's been a couple of years, and I feel like the general fan base now for this is so fucking casual that they run the risk that a lot of people will just straight up forgotten what the state of the MCU is, like what the state of the universe is, what's going on. And it's like you're going to have to almost like reacquaint people with this universe that you've created because they've just moved on and they've forgotten about it and they don't care anymore. Like, can we try and get some resolution for that giant celestial that's like poking its head out of the Pacific Ocean?
No.
It's like, how many movies has that been now?
I think there's a shot of that in the Captain America Brave New World trailer. And if you look at the comment section, they're like, look, they're finally acknowledging it. It's like, guys, you're pleased by anything.
The second time it's been acknowledged by the MCU, and the only other time was like an Easter egg in She-Hulk. So it's not the most momentous event, like considering the size of the statue.
Yeah,
it's getting to the point where everything is self-referential. The people are just excited when it references itself.
And that's
Well,
like, we're not even that excited when it references itself, though, because, like, again, if you don't remember what it's referencing and what really is there of the last several years of Marvel films to remember, then it's just, I vaguely remember that there is a statue somewhere, but I don't remember what the significance of it in the plot is or what it's supposed to be. What is it really even referencing at that point? It sort of goes back to that, the argument that people will just sort of drift away gradually as opposed to actively, switch off. It's just a case of it's died by very, very, very slow and unpleasant means.
It's gone out with a whimper.
Yes.
And I think you're going to see more and more artifacts from like previous movies that just are going to get forgotten. Things that are potentially world changing. No one cares. And there's, by all accounts, an awareness amongst the higher ups at Marvel that they have fucked up with a lot of this stuff, and particularly with trying to inject a lot of politics into it. They know it's turned a lot of people off, and they've tried to course correct. But then when you've got about a dozen movies and TV shows in the pipeline, there's a lot of things you can't change, and you're just going to have to suffer through it. A case in point might be something like Ironheart, which has been in the can for years now, and they've still never released it. It's going to be an Echo kind of situation. They know it's an absolute turd. They know people are going to hate it, but they just don't know what to do with it.
I actually tried before this to find the timeline, because every convention they do, they always put up a timeline. There wasn't one for this D23, but everyone I found was from like San Diego Comic-Con, the previous D23. They're not the same ever. They're always different. Things are missing, things are moved, so it's just a dumpster fire at their storyboarding level. I
think the problem I have as well is something like Deadpool and Wolverine that made, what was it, 1.3 billion by the time it was done? Like, really good returns, really taking it back to like the good old days when like the MCU was regularly pulling in over $1 billion per movie. I worry that what that ultimately was just a bit of a flash in the pan. Like people were just watching it because it was cool to see Wolverine back and all that, just nostalgia stuff. It doesn't reflect on the overall health of this cinematic universe. And I worry that it's just encouraging Marvel to think, we can still do it. People are still loving our stuff, and we can get back to where we were 5 years ago and just keep churning more things out. And it's not that world anymore. It's like people have moved on from superhero movies to a considerable degree. And it doesn't matter what you put out now. You're not going to get back what you had before.
Yeah, I think we won't know for a few more years anyway, because like Avengers, that will mask that kind of stuff, because those will, like, if Deadpool and Wolverine made $1 billion, those will definitely make that much money. So we'll have to wait until like whatever phase 7 to really know.
Thing is, will it though? Because like, what Avengers do you even have left?
I think that, well, because it's Secret Wars, they can bring back a lot of people, and I think that's what they're.
That's not the first one though. The first one is the Doom one.
Yeah, but I mean, Robert Downey Jr. As long as it doesn't suck, I think that's the thing that we forget too. Is like Deadpool and Wolverine got pretty good reviews, and the audience really liked it. So it was a well-received movie. That's why it had legs and legged out to 1.3 billion. So it has to Avengers Doomsday, even though it doesn't have all the Avengers in it. If it's
and
good.
I can see them doing something like that. So yeah, certainly with Secret Wars, it's sort of Deadpool and Wolverine in its approach, but it takes itself at least semi-seriously. But like my concern with that has always been that it doesn't replicate more than once or twice. It's the same thing. Spider-Man: No Way Home, really popular, and people really liked seeing the way the old characters were brought back in, but also brought back into the story, so they weren't just there for the sake of, hey, remember this thing. And then the lesson was taken from that. Well, how about we just have loads of cameos in other Marvel movies? Let's bring Jean-Luc Picard into Multiverse of Madness, and then just have him just disappear for no reason. And like, it's not as successful. Deadpool and Wolverine does something similar. You can get away with that because it's not ostensibly tied to anything else. It's not a serious story. I think to its discredit, it actually sacrifices what story there was in the earlier Deadpool films, but people would still turn out to see it because they understood what they were getting. It's something that will take the piss out of something they remember once liking, and they're not that invested in it anymore, but they remember liking it, so they'll be really keen to see all of these toys effectively wheeled out on screen and smashed together for a bit. And you might get some success with an Avengers movie doing that once. I just don't see it scaling or even being particularly lasting. Once you've used it, what happens next? Then you do inevitably run back into the problem of we have no new characters and we have no new stories, and we've already exhausted all of the member berry value of the old ones at this point. So where does it go after Secret Wars? Maybe they'll bring in a brilliant new cast of characters. They won't, but maybe they will, and then the whole thing can kick off again. But I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, I feel like this is their excuse to have like a nostalgia Avengers, like the kind of Avengers team up we wanted 12 years ago, like Hugh Jackman's Wolverine and Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man versus Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom. But after that, I think they'll have a recast Iron Man and Captain America, and they'll kind of go back to the well, and like Phase 7 will be a whole new MCU, but all of the Avengers you like will be there.
They're really lucky that they skipped over about 30 years of good storylines that they can go back to. That's the most
yeah, they did.
Yeah, this is what I've heard about, like the later phases where they skipped all the good stuff and like ported it forward to like the stuff from the 2010s, which was just universally panned.
So some of the stories they just straight up took titles from or derivatives of titles, and it wasn't anything to do with that at all. Like Secret Invasion is actually a pretty good storyline, and it was complete trash as the show because it didn't have anything to do with anything. Like the whole point of Secret Invasion was that there was certain heroes that had been Skrulls all along, and it was creating a war. It wasn't this like, oh, okay, a couple of random people from S.H.I.E.L.D. might be Skrulls, and they even Blood and Thunder was Love and Thunder was a derivative.
Blood and Thunder would have been a better one.
Blood and Thunder is the actual name of the one that they stole it from, and it had nothing to do with it at all. They just took it and were like, oh, let's just change it to Love and Thunder. I normally have, maybe I have that somewhere.
That movie, I tell you, was Taika Waititi's Waterloo. Like his career has been on a downward spiral since then.
He was straight up taking the piss. What's sad is that Gore the God Butcher is one of the greatest MCU villains of all time. I mean, it's probably not Thanos level, but they could have done so much with his story, and even had him as a main villain for a couple of films, but they ruined it.
I remember thinking that at the time. Twice in a row, they were just burning through people with real great potential, even to be entire phase anchoring villains. A new kind of Loki in the sense of their ever-presentness. Multiverse of Madness, Wanda, Scarlet Witch probably should not have gone out in a blaze of inglory in that movie because she has a huge amount of character work building up. Everyone knows who she is. It would have been a really tragic fall as you see her over multiple films become a villain and someone that they all really have to take very seriously in order to beat and defeat. And that that it's such a natural way for that story to go, and they just junked it. And then Gore the God Butcher, exactly the same way. He's a really interesting premise. I don't know much about his comics version, but even what we got in the movie, Christian Bale did a great job with what he had. And the idea of the character going around, murdering all the gods is one that can last more than a film. And he's got a reasonable backstory for what little time it had in that movie. And then again, just get rid of him as well. And then it's the next film. It's another bad person. Oh, he's gone. Then we got to the Marvels, and I don't even remember what. Oh, Darth Ben, that's the one. We burned through so many promising characters, and we ended up with Darth Ben, and then she got rid of as well. So now it's, again, lacking structure. There's no unifying thread. Kang was there for a bit. He's gone for extracurricular reasons. So who the hell knows where we're going next?
Yeah. I actually have one for you, Platoon. So Gore the God Butcher is actually supposed to lead into the storyline they want to use for Spider-Man right now, the King in Black, which is, all the symbiotes, everything about that, and everything that was leading into the most recent movie. And they didn't connect them at all. That would have been a great connection they could have had, but they just used it as a one-off. Somebody just mentioned the High Evolutionary. That was another one. High Evolutionary could have been a character that they used for an extended period of time. They keep hinting at other characters, Mephisto, Galactus, all of these, and they just never pull the trigger on any of them. They'd rather just kill off random smaller villains.
It just goes to show the disjointed way that they were writing and producing these films. I felt like the first few phases of the MCU, there was at least some sort of communication between each of the directors and writers on the different projects, and it felt like it was progressing and leading up to something. But now they just, like with Secret Invasion Dark Hour, you know, the director, they told him not to read the comic book that he was adapting.
That was ridiculous.
I get the impression that like trying to work in the storylines for all these various TV shows has like stretched their ability to govern this universe to a breaking point, and it's just snapped. And they just can't maintain that level of control and cohesiveness to it like they could with the earlier phases. When you think about, like, right, we've essentially got this overarching universe that has to incorporate all the events of these various TV shows that are all like done by different creatives, and they've all got their own conflicting characters and whatever. And we've got to maintain the movie releases like multiple times per year to move the overarching story forward. It's too much, I think, for them to control. And this is
it was
what you
too
end
much
up
in
with.
the comics as well. I mean, not as much Marvel. DC did it more often, but there was always these giant events that reset things because it gets out of control. It was very similar to what they were doing with Loki when they were doing all the pruning of things. It's something that the comics industry has done for years. The storylines get so far away from themselves and so convoluted, and they end up having event after event after event that they have to eventually have a big event that brings everything back to where it was. That's what Secret Wars was back when it happened.
That's what Crisis on Infinite Earth was as well, wasn't it? Like, that was the whole point of it, to rationalize all their different storylines and stuff.
2015 Secret Wars, that this movie looks like it's probably going to be based on. It's so ironic. So they created what was called the Ultimate Marvel Universe in the early 2000s, and it was it's supposed to be for new readers because even with the resets, the lore was just too deep. So everyone had a fresh start, like literally everyone is whole new universe. And then 15 years later, that had become so convoluted that they needed to reboot it. And so they mashed it together with the regular Marvel universe and just kept like the more interesting characters from that one. Like Miles Morales.
And then they redid it again
from that one.
But then they broke it off again, and then it just became Ultimate Comics. And they I mean, I actually have, like, I'm not going to turn my camera, but I have the entire original run up there, and it's an entire shelf of different stories. And that was
from a business perspective, it's fantastic because it allows you to keep recycling the same characters and the same storylines over and over again, like every decade or so, and just pull in a whole new audience. Like, sure, why wouldn't you?
I mean, Batman does it. He's doing it again. Robert Pattinson.
How many Batmen have we had over the past, 10, 15 years?
Probably
Only
as
one
many
Blade,
Spider-Men that we've had as well.
I still don't fully understand what the process is now. Like, which Batman is canon at the moment to DC? Like, is Pattinson's one going to like fit into James Gunn's overall vision, or what? Like,
I thought you meant general, like the comics. I was going to say they just created another new Batman in the comics, Absolute Batman. So
Absolute Batman. That sounds like a euphemism for something.
But
I don't know what, but
it's like absolute vodka. But like, we've had the Ben Affleck version, which is technically still alive. So like, I don't know, is that just stopping? You've got the Robert Pattinson one, which is continuing because we've got another movie coming out for that. We've got the Penguin, which continues that storyline. You had the Michael Keaton one that came in with the Flash. I guess he's dead now. And like how many are we dealing with here? I guess like James Gunn might then bring in one to like fit into his shared universe.
Yeah, I think he's bringing in his own.
So Pattinson's one is going to be a separate universe from the rest of them.
Yeah, I heard that was classified as an Elseworlds,
which is going to be tricky and inconvenient, given that the Batman and Penguin have both been well received. Penguin particularly well received, and that universe actually seems to be doing quite well for itself. It's like Kevin committed to separating them out into Elseworlds and whatever James Gunn wants to do. Having the Elseworld one be really popular and do really well, but having already ruled out that being your main storyline probably isn't the position they expected to find themselves in.
Yeah,
I think they're in a fundamental dilemma with the use of Batman because ultimately he is just he's a detective. He just fights criminals. He doesn't fight space aliens or interdimensional gods or anything like that. That's not really what he's there for. but he's pretty much the most popular character in DC's lineup. And so when you're doing, when you want to launch an extended universe like the MCU, so you can print all that sweet money for yourself, you have to try and port him into that kind of setting where he's going to be taking on Thanos level threats alongside other heroes, of course, but it just doesn't work. And the more they try and do it, the more they fail at it. But they're stuck with him. Like they can only make use of him properly from a creative point of view in low level human on human like battles, essentially. Yep. That's where he's at his best, but it doesn't fit into the bigger picture of an extended universe, and there's no way to get around that fundamental problem.
I mean, yeah, it would require way too much Man him as a character, because in theory, I know the comparisons between Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark can be slightly overdone, but similar reliance on technology. They're both men. They're not superhumans. You would expect them both to be good against roughly the same caliber of enemy, and yet Iron Man is successfully skilled up and given enough technology that he can take part in these massive interdimensional conflicts. Is there no way to do that with Batman? Does it just not fit the aesthetic?
You probably could, but like I think it's
the aesthetic.
With Tony Stark, this is a suit that allows him to literally fly and shoot laser blasts out of his hands and stuff. Like, it's a next level of technology beyond what you could realistically do with Batman. I mean, I suppose you could if you just wanted to go all out and say, yeah, he's just a fucking genius inventor now, and he's invented a flying suit that allows him to basically just be Iron Man. But then you just make him into a clone of Iron Man, and you're not he's not a distinct character anymore.
Just give him nanotech and it can do everything.
Yeah.
The difference between that. Yeah, I was going to say the difference between Iron Man and Batman, as you guys have said, is that Batman is a detective. He does have some engineering traits where he's able to make suits and make fine adjustments, but he's not on the level of Tony Stark. He's not an inventor. He doesn't create things. He needs his company to do that. So it's a bit far-fetched to see him flying around.
Yeah, and that's what they do in the comic books to try and make him match up with the Justice League. In my opinion, it's never worked, or like, even as a comic book reader, I still can't suspend my disbelief completely that Batman's participating. But he's made like Iron Man level suits, like bat suits that are equivalent in the comic books, and that's what they would probably realistically have to do. Didn't they do that in the Justice League movie? Didn't he have like this?
Yes, it was. Well, that was in. It wasn't the Justice League movie. It was the
Batman versus Superman.
And
so he had the armored suit, but even that, it's
yeah.
I mean, I guess it allows them to be a bit more powerful and tank a little bit more damage. Although, arguably, if Superman punches you in the face, like, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, you're just going to get obliterated. But yeah, it was something. But even that doesn't allow him to like do the things that the Iron Man suit can do.
Yeah, you can just have him fly around the bat plane or whatever.
Yeah,
the Batwing.
Yeah, shoot stuff. Pew, pew.
It's so annoying in that movie because like he actually comes alive as a character when he does like the warehouse fight scene where he's just up against other humans and he gets to kick ass, and he looks actually quite impressive there. He's just like this big hulking monster compared to them.
I was actually going to mention Batman Beyond. That's kind of the aesthetic that you'd get if you tried to match him in an Iron Man style, because a lot of the tech that Batman Beyond used is from 30, 40 years later, and it was, booster rockets in the feet, the wristbands fired all the various things. So it's very similar to Iron Man. You'd end up having Batman Beyond.
There's a guy in the chat called Joe Kerr, who I like the name as well. He said bat nipples and ice skates in the boots were peak bat tech. And I 100% agree.
Agreed.
Dave,
does he have the bat credit card?
Hopefully. Never leaves home without it.
There was a lot of other stuff at D23 too. I just kind of did like a mashup slide here of some of the things.
Cortato. Fantastic.
If anybody wanted to pick out anything, or if the audience wanted us to pick something apart from this, this is only a few of the things.
Can we talk about Tron for a moment?
Yes.
Because maybe I'm crazy, right? I rather enjoyed the original from the 80s. It's got a real charm to it. Like, essentially, it's got like cell animation masquerading as CGI, but I think it looks great for what it is. I never understood the appeal of Tron Legacy. For me, it's just like you're telling a story, kind of like Blade Runner 2049, which didn't really need to be told. I felt like it's just a continuation of the same ideas as the original. And aside from like the Daft Punk soundtrack that everyone still raves about, it doesn't really have anything that really gets me excited as a movie.
Well, that was
Maybe
going to be
I'm
my
wrong.
answer to why people like Tron Legacy. Is just it's Daft Punk. That's the only reason I really like that movie, and I don't really like the movie, but the soundtrack's good. The aesthetic is unique. There's nothing quite like Tron, and it tries to push boundaries. I think in terms of like fictionally, in terms of storytelling, it's always tried to push that boundary between like what's real, what's possible, and what's just unbelievable. And it tries to do that with its production design as well. Both the Tron movies have always been the first to utilize a brand new technology, which is not yet ready at all. And you can tell, even the 80s one, you can tell it's not quite there, but they're using it to show what it is theoretically capable of. And then it becomes an industry mainstay about 5 years after the Tron movie comes out. I think the first one is it Disney's first ever all digital, all CG kind of production? It meets some milestone. I can't remember which one it is. And then that technology is universal. And then Tron Legacy comes out, and it's the de-aging and the face recognition. And you look at younger Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy, and it's awful. However, 5 to 10 years later, every single movie is using that technology, and Tron is really just there to kind of showcase what it might be capable of. And the way it blends that with its slightly out there science fiction premise, I've always appreciated, if not necessarily enjoyed. Kind of like Avatar, but with more of a story.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think I found particularly Tron Legacy frustrating in that Tron is barely even a factor in the story, which is kind of ironic, really. And yeah, I always felt like it was a prime example of just the visual and the aesthetic over the actual meaningful story that they were trying to tell with that one. I guess I just never really felt like I was that invested in it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes quite far out because I'm trying to even remember what the premise of the story doesn't. Yeah, Jeff Bridges goes down there in the past, and that he meets a race of, are they like sentient spawned AIs, ISOs, I think they're called, and then they get wiped out by
like
his evil alternate self who he created. And like, there are interesting-ish thematic elements. It's just you can tell, I think, that it's not that much of a cultural mainstay. The fact that the whole premise is actually the premise lifted almost wholesale by Ant-Man 3, which is just Tron Legacy but with ants instead. You have the main villain who's down there and he's trapped and he wants to get out into the real world with his army of digital creations. And they kind of defeat him, and then they ride off into the sunset together, having brought back what's her name, Olivia Wilde's character, who is one of the ISOs and has theoretically the secret to like eternal life in her code or something. It's like, that's incredibly important for your story. It's just that story didn't go anywhere, which means that the film probably didn't resonate very hard until Tron Ares comes out, and I don't even know what the premise for this movie is, really.
They didn't really say anything about it. It was very quick.
Oh, Disney, you crazy guys, just constantly cock teasing us. We're doing this thing. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, though.
Yeah, that was one of the ones where they just kind of showed it and it moved on quickly. They didn't have anybody come out and talk about it, really.
Yeah, and they didn't get Daft Punk back for the soundtrack, so my interest in it has automatically halved at least. But is it 9 Inch Nails doing the soundtrack for this one instead? Some other fairly well-known people are doing it.
Sure.
Yeah, like
I also tried to grab. I tried to grab the Portuguese poster, like the ones, if I could, because it was in Brazil. But
I like that one, Quarteto Fantastico.
One I couldn't really find because there was only a video of it. Was they brought Rachel Zegler on at one point, and you could hear that. You could hear that they're pumping a crowd noise in from the speakers, but the crowd is sitting completely still.
Yeah,
and it just cuts, like it literally cuts. And usually when they use that, it's to try and spur the crowd to start chanting. So when it cuts, it keeps going. But it just stopped. It was a dead stop, and you could tell it was crowd pumping, and it was hilarious.
I would say as well, just looking at the list of things, because Snow White is obviously, that's a fairly big impending disaster to hit next year, but that's what I guess you'd call it like a legacy reboot almost. But looking at the other things on this list, that's Incredibles, Toy Story 15 or whatever we're up to now, Fantastic Four is coming back, Tron Ares, a sequel, What is the bottom left and the top left? What are those?
The bottom
Spider-Man
left.
Noir.
Well, that's just that's the animation department for Marvel. I think that's Spider-Man Noir or something. And I think that was just a general everything for What If and all their animation. And then the bottom right is Incredibles 3.
Yeah, and top right is
That was
something.
just some weird stuff. Those were like the people who were basically on stage the whole time. Then you have obviously Buzz Lightyear, billion of them, and
I think
Charlie
the
Cox
toys
trying
are-
to make it look like he's not ashamed of his life up in the left-hand corner.
Yeah, that dude's getting used and abused by Marvel. I will say, just because I'm sure there's more interesting things to talk about, but man, isn't it interesting the journey that the Toy Story franchise has gone on? I feel like if they had just had those first 3 movies, you would have had just a really charming, heartwarming story that's actually quite poignant about, growing up and moving on and leaving things behind, and like the sort of impermanent nature of relationships, and that's good stuff. But then they had to go and ruin it by doing Toy Story 4, and God only knows what they're going to do with Toy Story 5. Why?
Yes.
I mean, I know
It's going to
why.
be a shipping crate that lands somewhere in a desert or something. I'm not really sure. This is the premise.
What a shame that this is where it's going.
because I joke that they might lift wholesale like Terminator as a story, and the time travel gets involved, and it's evil Buzz Lightyears have to be stopped. But looking at this, I'm wondering if it's going to be more of an iRobot situation where you've got a bunch of discarded Buzz Lightyears because the world has moved on from old toys, and the emotional crux will be, again, discarded old thing finds new use and purpose and comes to enjoy life, and it's going to be Buzz leading all of his fellow discarded Buzz Lightyears that everyone grew out of, and then they'll prove in some way that they haven't grown out of them, and Buzz Lightyear will be popular again. It just seems like that they've done it before, and so they will do it again, would be my read, but that's only based on this visual.
Yeah, I can see that. And so when you get that, because really, even Toy Story 3 was kind of just recycling the basic ideas of Toy Story 2, where, the idea that Andy's going to grow up eventually and move away from the toys and leave them behind. And that was always the looming threat with Toy Story 2. And it's like, well, it actually does happen in 3. And it's like, okay, well, you've taken that idea to its logical conclusion. And now it's like, well, we're just going to kind of do it again, but with Buzz this time. Okay, I guess. What are you trying to tell us with all this?
And it's a takeaway from the entire slate of things that we had in that previous slide, is that everything there is either a reboot or a long in the tooth sequel for things that haven't really been renewed or updated since they were bought by Disney. And you can tell, they went around, they bought up all of these different studios, and they had all of these IPs under their name, and they thought, we're going to make a huge amount of money, and all we have to do is just keep putting them on the screen. It doesn't work like that. And I would imagine every single one of the films listed here will prove the point. No one wants Tron Ares particularly, or Toy Story 5, or Incredibles 3, or another Spider-Man thing. It's just that there's no renewal. Where are the brand new properties they're really excited to showcase?
They had a few that they showed early on in the Pixar section. I couldn't really find pictures of them though. There was one called Elio, where it's about a boy who goes to space and hangs out with Martians. It seems like Pixar's the only ones that are still trying to innovate. The other divisions are just the Lucasfilm, Marvel, even I don't even know if they announced the new actual cartoon style Disney movie. I didn't even get that far into but Pixar's the only one that's even attempting.
It's kind of funny actually the way Disney's progressed, because essentially it was a company founded, at least from the film side of things, on plundering existing fairy tales. They would certainly put a Disney-fied spin on it, because man, most of those old fairy tales are fucking terrifying. But
Dark.
they would put an Americanized kind of Disney-fied spin on it, and then package it up as a new movie. And that's why you ended up with Snow White and Cinderella and all the classic fairy tales throughout the decades that they've done. Which is all fine, but now they've progressed to the point where they're just plundering themselves, as Platoon said. Like, most of the things they're producing now are either reboots, remakes, or sequels to things that they've already done. Like, where's their new ideas? There must still be a wealth of fairy tales out there that they could repurpose if they can't come up with any ideas by themselves, but man, they just won't do it. Because why bother? Like, you can just take stuff that's already popular and just make it again. Easy.
They're also
Yes.
they're doing even worse than that. They're reframing a lot of the classics. They're taking the villains and saying that they're heroes. Like the Mufasa movie is now going to be about he's adopted and steals the kingship from Scar, and so it's this whole they're not even pillaging from themselves. They're actually actively burning themselves. They're burning the city down behind them.
Well,
we're
new
we're doing Scar is misunderstood. Is that really where we're going?
Yes, that's where it's going.
Seems like
God.
it'll be a critique of capitalism or class-based societies or something. Fits with the message.
I was going to say the Lion King is a reimagining of Kimba the White Lion, and that was successful. Then they rebooted that with the live action, and now they're doing a reimagining of a reboot of a remake of another reimagining.
Kill me.
If you go even further back, it all originates in Hamlet. So they just keep doing it. They've recycled and rebooted and to the point where nothing is new and everything is the same.
Well, they did that with sorry, after you.
No, go ahead, Platoon.
Well, I was going to say they did it after really with Mulan as well. Mulan is one of the surest indicators of the way that they go wrong. The original Mulan is an adaptation of a fairy tale, which is not necessarily very familiar to a Western audience, and it does really well, very popular. Rather than taking the same approach, which is how do we find like diverse inspiration and bring it to an audience for the first time, they just went and did a live action remake of that to try and appeal to the people from whom the fairy tale comes. Why not go, isn't Black Myth Wukong, one of the best performing video games of recent times? That's based on sort of Asian folklore, Chinese folklore in particular, as far as I understand. I've not played it yet. It's not that hard to do. You go around and you look at this vast wealth of particularly folkloric fairy tale from as many different cultures as possible, and you see the promise in that in terms of bringing it to an audience, and it's fresh, seems fresh and new because we've never seen it before. But instead, they've abandoned that same approach. And yeah, it is just, let's do live action remake of the thing that was successful because it wasn't a mere remake. I don't understand how they are so short-sighted about this sort of thing.
I think part of the problem with these live action remakes as well is that generally they've been really financially successful. That's the problem. There's no, for them, there's no business case to not do it because it's like, well, it's a surefire hit. We're going to take something that we've already proven is popular. We don't have to rewrite a script or anything or come up with new ideas. We just refilm the thing in live action, and we're good to go. And we make $1 billion. Everyone's happy. I don't think that's going to happen with Snow White, but generally, up until now, it has been pretty successful.
Yeah, that depends on how long they can keep Rachel Zegler shut up for, I think. If she disappears from the public consciousness enough by the time that movie comes out, it might have a chance, but good luck.
Yeah,
you could
I
tell
think you're
when she was
100%
on
right.
screen.
They are 100% playing the waiting game with that one. It's like, okay, the longer we can leave this, the more people will forget about what an idiot she is.
You could tell when she was on screen in her little, it was a very short thing that they did, but she was clearly reading off of a teleprompter. They wrote 100% what she was saying. It was no emotion behind it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Which is how actors should be treated, in my opinion. Like, never ever let them out in public without a script. It's just a recipe for disaster. Yes, anything else come to mind from D23? Were there any other major announcements, or shall we move on to
I figured we would hit some of the super chats while some of them are relevant to what we were talking about. So you're cool with that.
Fire away.
Okay, so we will start with anything I see Disney in. So we'll start with this one.
Silence, you idiot, for $5. I'm awaiting and predicting when all the China tariffs lead to Disney being told to abandon their 2 parks there and panics to sell off IPs.
Does Disney source a lot of stuff from China for its parks? I mean,
Probably half their staff, I would assume.
be really suspicious. Yeah, the fucking Trump imposes new immigration controls, and it's just an army of ICE agents who march into Disney World, and then all of the poor actors and the characters get deported, and the children are traumatized as Mickey Mouse is led across the southern border.
Well, I think his weapon of choice is trade tariffs as well against foreign countries. Like, why use the military when you can just bankrupt them from the inside just by putting a tariff on everything they produce? And with China, like, well, since they produce essentially everything that we consume, that probably do a lot of damage. So, yeah, it'd be interesting.
Nick the Greek for $4.99. There's not enough alcohol in the world to endure another Disney Star Wars trilogy. Drinker, help us.
I cannot help you with this one. You're on your own.
Krungwol for 10 Ronkins. Let Harrison Ford pass on, guys. Jesus.
Yeah. I don't know why he's still making movies. He clearly hates it, and he just wants to be left alone. It's like, why does he keep doing it?
Like, he loves money.
I meant to bring this up before, but I was having technical issues. Why didn't they bring back Sam Elliott to just play General Ross? That he's younger than Harrison Ford. I don't understand why they didn't just make that. He played him once already. Why not just do that? But
Harrison Ford is a bigger name.
Yeah. Harrison Ford is. Yeah.
Also, maybe they thought, if he could channel all of the hatred and resentment from Dial of Destiny into his character. And the Red Hulk is basically what I imagine Harrison Ford felt like on the inside making that movie.
Isaac V for $5. Falcon couldn't afford a boat. How does he have a vibranium suit?
Well, because the senator decided to do better. Clearly,
he did better. I'm the senator, and I did better. John Callan for $2 fake bucks. Fantastic Four, Senor Fantastico is going to be so goofy.
Yep.
This one's a new membership.
Welcome,
John Gates. I recognize you from my own streams.
Let's see. Do we have any more?
I am actually excited for Fantastic Four. Like, I have hope for it anyway. I want it to be good.
Is that the same thing? Wanting it to be good and having hope for it? That sounds like a recipe for disaster to me.
I know.
Optimism is not the currency of our industry.
I know.
Who else have they cast apart from Pedro Pascal? I totally forgot.
Oh, it's the chick from no, that was Supergirl. Sorry,
Sue Storm. She's
wasn't
Kirby?
Vanessa Kirby? Vanessa Kirby.
Yeah.
Because there was that whole weird thing where he was like touching her on screen, and everyone was like on stage, and everyone was like, "Oh, he just has anxiety," and I was like,
"He's a grown man."
He's a grown man.
He was like groping her on stage, apparently
isn't he an actor that has to perform in front of like dozens, if not hundreds, of people in like the film crew and stuff? Like, why would he suddenly have anxiety there? Whatever.
God.
Okay, let's see.
Platoon, read that one.
Oh, you can't pronounce it. Toivo Korhonen for €5. Yeah. Remember when they promised we didn't have to watch Disney Plus shows to keep up with the movies? I do remember that, yes. And then they ditched it, basically with their first Disney Plus show, WandaVision, introduces the Darkhold. And if you don't watch WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness makes substantially less sense, and it already didn't make much sense. So, good luck. I can't wait to see how later Avengers films are really hinge on the adventures of Agatha and Twink. I'm looking forward to
that. David Gannon for $5. Hail panel. The original Ultimates run was actually great. It's where the idea of Sam Jackson as Nick Fury came from. And yes, it was actually really good. It doesn't hold up anymore. It's not.
It was a product of its time. There was a lot of references to the era.
Yeah.
It's very much. It is isolated in the mid 2000s. That is where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, like issue 1, when it came out in like July 2000, that was the shit. And then I don't know, even a year later, it wasn't relevant anymore. But still,
I feel like we're gradually developing a nostalgia now for that period, like the 2000s. enough time has passed now that we look back really fondly on it. Like, maybe I judged you too harshly. Movies that came out around about then. They seem like they're infinitely more watchable than they are today.
I think this is the last one that's relevant to what we've been talking about.
Dunkosaurus Flex for $5. Lionkind wasn't Kimba. What?
Lion King.
Lion King wasn't Kimba, not even close. Watch the YMS video on the matter. It's actually quite funny.
It's definitely. I'm pretty certain that story was almost exactly taken from Hamlet, and they just made them lions. Basically, they just changed the names, made them lions. That's all. And here's one that's sort of. That's definitely about Doctor Doom right there. So,
Taker 610 for $2. So it is physician's assistant Doom now.
It's been demoted for medical malpractice.
oh, I guess this one's sort of relevant to what we were talking about because it's Batman.
Detox for $4.99. I'm okay with any timeline of Batman that gets me to Red Hood. Yeah, that would be cool.
Which one is Red Hood? Who's that?
That's Jason Todd when he comes back from the dead.
Yeah, but Jason Todd has to be killed by Joker, and then like it's just the whole thing, and it's too much. So they'll never get to Red Hood. JV for $4.99. Tron Legacy is a 5 out of 10. It doesn't do anything especially bad, but it doesn't do anything especially good either. Very average film.
I think that's a pretty good summary of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Looks nice though.
Yeah. Sounds nice.
Does sound nice.
And we had a request to talk about Arcane.
I mean, we could. Who on the panel?
I don't know what that symbol is for 40.
That is
squiggly
squiggles.
line.
40 squiggles.
You could talk about Arcane. I haven't actually started season 2 yet. I know it just came out a day or two ago.
That case, and with apologies to chat, I think in aid of avoiding spoilers for the people on the panel who have not yet seen it, we will probably come to Arcane next week, would be my guess. I just don't want to. Yeah, it's.
If I could ask, what, like, without spoiling it, I suppose, what's your overall assessment of season 2 so far?
It's not off to the best start.
Yeah.
Without ruining anything, I think the animation looks fine, but from a character and story perspective, it's a bit flimsy.
Right. Are they doing this like one episode per week?
I think it's three sets of 3. So the first 3 dropped over the weekend. The next 3, I think, dropped this weekend, and then the final 3 dropped the weekend after that. So they're doing it in arcs, which makes it's quite convenient, I think, for like review comparison purposes, because you can just say, well, we've had the first act of season 2. How does it stack up in terms of the writing quality, the introduction of new characters, the way the plot's handled to the introduction of season 1? Admitting that they are trying to do different things. There are certain basic writing tips and tricks which season 1 just aces every single one of, and I feel like season 2 does not do that. It's leaning very heavily into the style that it, very rightly got praised for, but not always to aid the story that it was also very rightly praised for. There are just a few issues with the way things are set up. Some of the dialogue, particularly in episode 1, is stilted as hell. And really quite disappointing when you compare like the way that characters act and interact with each other in season 1. They're quite clearly trying to bring you up to speed as quickly as possible with the aid of time skips and lots of montage cuts and music video style editing, which doesn't always help ground you in time and place. And it does force contractions in the kind of character exchanges which limit them to talking very directly about, this is who I am, this is what I think today about thing that has happened, the end. Which, when you compare it to the subtleties present in season 1, is a bit disappointing. It does improve, though, as time goes on, is my impression of it. So I'm hoping it's just a bit of a flunk start, but it will get much better.
Season 1 started out really slow, too. So I would assume that it's going to get better. I said backstage, and I'll say it because Little Platoon, I'm not the biggest fan of Arcane. I've watched season 1. I don't think it's bad by any stretch, but I've never really gotten the feeling of this and how amazing everyone always tells me it is. I think it might have been one of those things. I watched it significantly later, so it may have been that I got it hyped up too much for me. But I can say that Act 2 and 3 were significantly better than Act 1 of the first season. So I'm hoping that it follows the same flow.
I mean, I think if you looked at the first 3 episodes of season 1, even, like, that got off to a pretty strong start, like, in terms of, like, the amount of plot events that were going on, the amount of world building that it did, and, like, setting up really the main characters' arcs for the whole rest of the season. Yeah, and I came into it not knowing anything about League of Legends, so I just came into it, like, completely cold. Oh,
Oh
he
no.
decided he didn't like that.
I just kicked myself. That was all. I control the kicks, so I had to kick myself.
No, I came into it completely cold, and straight away it impressed me. Like, damn, this is some really interesting stuff they're doing with these characters, and beautiful animation, obviously, like that goes
Yeah.
without saying. But
And
Well,
it
to
does
just-
such a brilliant job of making you really care about what you think are going to be the core cast all the way through that season. And then the reason episode 3 of season 1 is so effective is that they actually took the time to create these completely realized characters, only to have them dramatically killed off and play no part in proceedings, except insofar as the way they have psychological impacts on the people who survive, which is it's such a brilliant start to that season. Season 2 introduces some new people. I couldn't tell you anything about them. So,
right,
like, not quite as convincing, I don't think, on that score. And it also, I have a slight suspicion, and it's a concern more than it is a problem, because they might completely avoid this problem. But it's a prequel. It's canonical. It's canonical to League of Legends. I don't know anything about League of Legends much either. But when you start seeing, for instance, the writers go to quite extreme measures to avoid named characters dying, that becomes a bit of a problem, because it is a canonical prequel. And so it becomes quite clear when they are not killing people, even when the story suggests they should be killed, because they can't be killed because the game requires they're not. That may also slightly rear its head in the first 3 episodes, but you can mitigate that with like really strong writing. It's like a problem that lots of prequels have anyway, is that if you take Solo as an example, Solo is a prequel, you know Han and Chewie can't die. So every time you put Han and Chewie in a position of danger where the audience is only supposed to feel worried about how they will escape it, it's not going to be very effective, because you know they're going to escape it. But prequel conflicts can still be really interesting, even knowing they can't die, if you show what the conflict means between characters, what it like impacts it has on them in terms of personality and relationship and things like that. So to the extent, that Arcane leans too much on tension in fight scenes at the moment, it's probably not a good thing, but it will probably, at least I hope it will correct that later on. It will stop doing fights for the sake of stylish fights and start doing what season 1 did so well, which is these fights really do matter, not because they're throwing punches at each other, but because they care about each other, and this will impact what comes next. So I'm not trying to be a doomer about it by any means, and there's some really good stuff in it. I just think I would have preferred a stronger beginning.
okay,
Yeah, to your point of the new characters in season 2 not being memorable, I think what I loved about season 1 is you could go into it without having played the games, and in an episode or two understand what's driving the characters, what their motivations and goals are. And I'm 2 episodes into season 2, and I have no idea who these new characters are and what they're supposed to represent. Like, it's so strange.
well, I'm going to hopefully get into it tomorrow and like try and catch up as quickly as possible.
I saw somebody
still-
ask what I didn't like about it, by the way. I didn't hate it. I'm not saying I don't like it. I didn't find it to be like, I think what happened was it got so hyped for me that the whole time I was like, when does this become the greatest thing I've ever seen? And that might have been the problem.
I think that's unfortunate when things get overhyped. It's like, okay, it's never going to live up to it, unfortunately, because you build it up in your head as being something that it can't really be.
Yeah, but I'm acknowledging that. I'm acknowledging that that's
Yeah.
probably what happened with me. I maybe had I seen it 2 years prior, and it would have been a bigger deal for me. I'm not sure. Also, there was a lot of stuff that was spoiled for me, so that didn't help.
Yeah.
I guess
Well, I think we successfully avoided spoilers, I think. Quite, yeah. That's
Did really well, actually. Yeah.
Yay.
I successfully have no clue what's going on in this season, but I also simultaneously know roughly like the level of quality of writing and stuff. So
Snape kills Dumbledore. That's what
Yeah.
happens in episode 3.
These are always great super chats that steer the conversation. So
Platoon, you can just always read
So
his.
I'll just always read this one. Tovo Corhinan for 50 euros. Thank you, sir. Hey, BSUP, you have these 3 actors and these 3 roles. You do the casting. The actors are Danny DeVito, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Aziz Ansari, and the roles are She-Hulk's next Tinder match, vengeful Glugling in Rings of Power, and the main character in Bros 2, It Only Gets Harder.
Aziz has got to be the Tinder match, surely.
That's where I'm
The
going with that
logical
one. I
fit.
think.
Yeah.
That means, I quite like the idea of Danny DeVito as an orc Glugling.
I think
that could be
that's a
funny.
shoe in, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is someone in a basically what sounds very gay. That could be fun too. So yeah, unless anyone's got any
I say go with
advances
it,
on
yeah.
those.
I feel like he'd probably be up for it as well.
Power of Glug.
Gluck.
This was kind of our other topic, so I figure this makes sense to bring up.
Where to Wander for 1999. Hello, many people in America have been saying the results of the election is in part due to the woke stuff that institutions like Hollywood have been pushing across the country. Do y'all agree? And will Hollywood correct?
I mean, I
You're
agree
putting
that
this-
every single time a celebrity endorsed Kamala Harris, it hurt her.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, with Platoon and I, like, we're Brits, like, we're very much outsiders looking in, so I don't know how qualified we are to, like,
I
answer
think-
on Americans.
I think that the reflection on how people treat movies, go to the movies, feel about it when a movie's announced, I think that's a symptom of the political climate, and also it was a reflection of what was about to happen before what was about to happen during the election and afterwards. So, yeah.
What I will say is, like, because I said as much when I made a video about this, I think the very idea that celebrities endorsing a political candidate actually means anything has been declining for quite a while, and this is the year when it just absolutely put a stake through its heart. This idea that, oh well, random actor number 57 decided that this political candidate is the one for them, so clearly I need to vote for them too. It doesn't work anymore, and it shouldn't work. Like, these people are some of the least qualified people on the planet to tell you, the average person, who you should vote for and what should matter to you, because they're not average people. They haven't been average people for a very long time. They live very rich, privileged lives for the most part, and they live in a bubble that's very insulated from the rest of the world. And I don't blame them for that necessarily. You know, it's just part and parcel of becoming a big famous celebrity. You're going to get removed from the concerns of day-to-day life. You're not going to understand what the average American or Brit or whoever else goes through each day. That's not a bad thing necessarily, but it does mean that you can't lecture them about what they should be voting for and what should matter to them, because you don't understand anymore. That's, I think, the difference, and I think people have seen it now, and it's completely changed the balance of power and influence, I think, not just in America but in lots of other countries as well.
I think they'll course correct too. I mean, the MCU is the biggest thing in cinema. Regardless of if movies are bombing or doing Deadpool and Wolverine money, or bombing like the Marvels, and they're trying to course correct with that. And we won't know until the movies come out, but it certainly seems like they're trying to remove, any politics out of their movies by having Robert Downey Jr. come back. And
Where's the conflict that always
actually
exists is between sort of your social factors and your economic factors, and social factors are almost invariably come down to luxury beliefs. If you're the kind of person whose opinion on politics can be swayed by an actor, you are not the kind of person whose opinion needs to be swayed by an actor, because you probably already agree with them. If you're like working class and you live in Alabama and your groceries have become way more expensive, Oprah Winfrey being paid $1 million to endorse Kamala Harris isn't going to change anything about the way you live your life. But it will if you're fairly comfortable and you live in San Francisco or New York, because you're reinforcing what is a comfortable belief system, which is untethered from your economic concerns, and you become much more concerned with your social values and things like equal rights and fair pay for women and gay rights and all of these things, which, you know, in certain instances can be very important causes. But when you're fighting against people who literally can't afford to eat, they are less important causes. There's a hierarchy of needs that has to be met, and celebrity endorsements are very, very near the bottom of that list. But I'm a big believer that movies tend to reflect the climate that you live in. It's not just that culture is downstream or upstream from politics. The two things intersect. A lot of the madness and the things that people find very off-putting about modern movies is a reflection of the very polarized political climate we've lived in for the last 10 years. You know, a huge amount of elite opinion is formed and put into movies in response to things that these people are very concerned about in the day-to-day. It will be interesting to see going forward whether there's the equivalent hysteria that leads to everything from your average Marvel movie to your average Star Wars movie being injected with socio-political current day politics in response to Donald Trump, as happened last time, or whether the money men are now saying, well, that lost us loads of cash, and cash is more important to us as well. And then you have that slight, unpleasant for some people, pincer movement of working class people who can't afford to eat and investors who can't afford to keep funding doomed projects are both telling you that the money simply isn't there to support you. So celebrities, keep your mouth shut, go back to earning us money, and then maybe once everyone else is comfortable again, we can start talking about social issues.
I do get the feeling that you know, people have asked me about this like many times since the election, and I'm edging towards the latter option of what you suggested there. That yeah, I think they realized their position is not as strong as it was in, say, 2016 when Trump got elected for the first time, because the backlash then was enormous, and they just would not shut up about it for the next 4 years. I think they've realized that perhaps the winds have shifted now, and they are not in a position now to fight against it, because ultimately they are running out of money, and it has been detrimental to their bottom line, and you can't keep doing that. Ultimately, I think that's kind of the position they're in now. So you'll probably still get the resistance, but it's going to be a lot less powerful than it was 8 years ago.
I think that the loudest celebrities are the ones that are going to have the hardest time of doing an about face on this. The ones who were maybe said one thing here, or like the Keanu Reeves of the world, like the ones who like ride the subway, you know, and don't really talk about this kind of stuff. But like the ones who were really, really vocal are going to have a lot of trouble not continuing down that, because now it's become kind of part of their brand.
It's become part of their personality, I think. Like Mark Hamill, I think he wakes up, the first thing he thinks about is how much he hates Donald Trump. Like, it's like that's how obsessed he is. I don't know what he's going to do with himself now.
I think probably the cringiest thing that I saw was that Avengers one, the all the Avengers, all the actors being in the Zoom call. Yeah, sorry, and that was probably the worst one, especially from Don Cheadle, who's been like one of my favorite actors forever. He just came off as so bad during that call, and
it was
I'm wondering.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I'm just wondering how any of them can really say anything the other way now. But go ahead, Drinker.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if you were to ask me to epitomize like why celebrity endorsements don't work anymore, it's that call. It's like this fake veneer of like, hey, we're all just friends hanging out and having a chat, and it's like all scripted. Clearly it's all scripted, and it's been edited to try and make it look real, like an authentic conversation, and it's not. And it's like, that's it. That's the fakery right there. Like, why can't you just have, if you care so much about this and you genuinely believe all this stuff, why can't you have just had an actual conversation there? You can't, because you don't care. You're just pretending. Like
Don
everything
Cheadle
else
is
you
a
guys
really
do
good
in life.
actor. Don Cheadle's a really good actor. He's just now a very cringy, really good actor.
I mean, it was cringe, but it's also, I mean, it's, I think, indicative of a lot of the approach that campaign took, is that it's very far out of step with the times. The Avengers cast getting together to endorse might potentially have been well received in 2010. But we're in 2024, and they haven't even been doing their own jobs well for about 10 years. So I don't think many people thought they were very well qualified to judge who should be your presidential candidate that year. Actors, it's come up before. I think people quite instinctively dislike being told by millionaires that, you know, they should vote for whoever the millionaire thinks is oppressed. I don't think the millionaire understands who oppressed people are or what really oppresses people in their daily lives. They are very much out of touch. It's the same thing in England when you had Premier League footballers taking the knee for Black Lives Matter. You are multi-millionaires and you earn that in a month, and you're sitting here telling us that all forms of inequality are bad. I don't think you're the people to talk about this at all. Stop it. Go back to playing, kick the ball in the net, and that's what we want you to do.
Yeah.
If they really cared about that, they'd give half of their paychecks away to minority groups, but they don't do that.
Yeah, they do. Orlando Bloom, when he gives interviews and says, I'm constantly looking for roles for myself and women and minorities, of course. It's like, well done. Everyone clap for Orlando Bloom. Orlando Bloom is putting his reputation where his mouth is. Neither are coming out very well from that exchange.
See if there was any more that were like relative to this. No.
I think Anthony Mackie said it best in an interview a couple of years ago when he was discussing the age of the movie star being dead, and people don't really go to the movies to see actors. We want to see characters, and we don't care about the politics or opinions of actors because they're so far removed from the everyday life of regular people. We don't really give a shit about that.
Well, yeah, and as you say there, the focus on characters rather than the actors like gradually diminishes the influence of the actor outside of the movie that they're in. Because like we don't have movie stars anymore. We don't have these big public figures that we actually care about. They're just like, there's the guy who played Captain America, or there's the guy who played Iron Man. It's not like, oh shit, that's Robert Downey Jr. Man, I can't wait to hear what he's got to say. The actors that we had are very much from like that previous generation. Like Harrison Ford is a movie star, Tom Cruise is a movie star, but they're all 50, 60 years old or more. That's where we're heading, unfortunately.
I would argue that they're way older than that. I would say most of the movie stars are in their 70s and 80s.
I mean, probably, yeah. Tom Cruise might be one of the last, I suppose, or one of the youngest. I did like this message from Carlos Villotro. Says social media explicitly showed how retarded, out of touch, and just how awful people, nearly all celebrities, actually are. That's very true.
Yeah,
where you get insight.
They are less interesting people. I mean, back in the day, actors have always, in some sense, dovetailed with politics, and on both sides of the aisle. You had Charlton Heston was a big advocate for Ronald Reagan. He would do interviews effectively as Reagan's proxy. Charlton Heston wasn't always very intelligent on the issues, but he was infinitely more intelligent and articulate than any given actor is today. He did an interview opposite Christopher Hitchens on, I think it was the first Gulf War. And Hitchens challenged him to name just the 4 countries around Iraq, because if you're going to bomb a country, you might do it the courtesy of knowing where it is. And Heston couldn't do the geography part of that, but he was at least semi-informed on the issues. He was an articulate spokesperson for an ideology. Reagan himself obviously was an actor, but he had political beliefs. He had a worldview that he could espouse and articulate. Sidney Poitier, asked about race riots, would say, well, why are you just asking me because I'm a black person? I'm more than just a black person. I'm an actor. I'm an artist. I create. He's more interesting for what he thinks elsewhere. These people at the moment just aren't very interesting. They're not very clever. They live sheltered lives. They have no meaningful life experience that can possibly justify their political experience. And they seem to think that just trading on the reputation they've gained from film roles is enough to inform them on world politics. Whereas my impression is that a previous generation of actors would have been able to take their reputation to enhance their life experience. And the life experience is the thing that gives them a view worth listening to. But we don't really have those people now.
No, and I think, certainly if you go back a few generations, like the actors that we had, in the 50s, the 60s, even the 70s, like a lot of those guys had done stints in, say, the military in World War II. And like when you talk about life experience, like Jimmy Stewart, like was commanding like a bomber wing during World War II. Like stuff like that it puts you in a much more commanding position to be able to say, I understand some of the struggles of people. I've been through a lot of shit and experienced a lot of stuff in my life that I can at least bring some kind of perspective to the opinions that I have. But yeah, like today's actors wouldn't understand that. Like they don't have anything to equate that to.
It'll be interesting as well because obviously Gladiator 2 is coming up this week, I think, isn't it? And
the 15th, I think it comes out. Yeah.
yeah, which will be interesting to see. Just for because you could argue it depends how that film goes. I don't have very high hopes for that movie at all. If it goes the way I expect it to go, which is to say the way every other one of Ridley Scott's recent films has done, you can tie that there's all kind of interesting thematic links between the actual decline of the Roman Empire and the person who is now depicting the Roman Empire as being that very out of touch elite. And elite established opinion has just so far divorced from the values that gave rise to it, and things just become shallow, degraded forms of their old noble ideals. I do kind of wonder whether or not Gladiator 2 will actually embody that quite well, but maybe it'll be good. I won't prejudge it.
The reviews are good, apparently.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are the professional reviews, I assume.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to put a huge amount of stock
Well,
in.
no, there are 85, I think, counted right now, which is pretty substantial. I think it's a good chunk.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just think it's not. Say, for example, best case scenario, it's a pretty good movie. I think that's the best we can hope for from Ridley Scott at this point in his career. It's a pretty good movie. Everyone turns in a decent performance, and it's just fine overall. It's not going to have the same cultural impact that the first Gladiator had, because that was a movie that came along, I think, just the right time to rejuvenate that whole swords and sandals genre. Like something like that hadn't been done for decades. And so when this movie came along, it was like, holy shit, like, yeah, we used to make movies like this, and they're actually pretty fucking cool if they're done properly with good actors. We're not going to... What the fuck? Oh, I forgot the dog was in here. Jesus. I just saw something lurking behind me there. We don't live in that world, I guess, where that novelty value is going to kick in, and we're going to suddenly realize, like, oh wow, this genre is back again. It's not like that now. It's more just going to be, this is kind of an inferior clone of the first Gladiator. That's ultimately what people are going to compare it to, and I just feel like it's going to so hamper its chances, I suppose.
I mean, it would be a curveball if it turned out to be good, wouldn't it? Sorry, yes, Super Chan.
Oh, sorry. This was the one that was like pseudo related to what we were talking about earlier, and then we kind of went off on a tangent. But I figured I'd bring it back because I brought it up 3 times. But
John Gates for $5. Hollywood played a factor in invading every young man's hobbies, making escapism impossible and inadvertently activating low propensity voters.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I don't think it's just Hollywood. I mean, that's a thing that's happening at every level of society, and just fandoms, hobbies, interests, anything like that. Everything like video games, I think particularly have really borne the brunt of that in recent years, where it's like, oh yeah, you want a bit of escapist fun, do you? Well, fuck you, because we're going to lecture you about Black Lives Matter or trans rights or whatever other flavor of the month political topic there is.
It's an incredibly niche concern, and yeah, the same thing happens. Funnily enough, it's happening with novels, particularly, but less publicly, I think, because it's been a slightly longer burn. But in a number of universities in the UK, which used to have big English departments and some really prestigious English lit courses, have just dropped them because not enough people sign up for them. Mostly, it's men not signing up for them anymore, and publishing has become a very female-dominated industry. But one of the theories for why these courses have lost all their interest is because you go there and you expect to learn about, how Shakespeare tells brilliant stories, and instead it's some random nobody who's never published anything in their life is standing at the front of the class telling you that Shakespeare was wrong in his portrayal of women as being second-class citizens. It's like, this isn't actually telling you about English. There's this incessant, not even deconstruction, but really just maligning. And if you have any interest in movies, it's kind of a similar thing, and video game writing as well. You're not learning anything from most of these games, which think they're so clever and insightful, because they're really not. They just think they are. But by incessantly repeating the same message over and over again, the most shallow, surface-level current-day politicking, what exactly is going to inspire the next generation to create these things? Because they seem to be being told that they're just shit. Why should anyone be interested?
Have you seen Echo Chamberlain's video about the British publishing industry?
That is on my watch later list, but I've heard it's good.
It's excellent. Yeah, he's done his research, he knows his facts, and he marshals quite a lot of data to support his claims. But yeah, he presents a really good sense of the problem, which is exactly as you describe. There's now an absolute drought of young men who are just not interested in getting into literature anymore because it offers them nothing. The entire publishing industry now is essentially gatekept by white liberal women who are only going to publish white liberal women who talk about things that interest white liberal women. And the result is like guys are just not bothering to do it because there's no point. Like they've got no chance of succeeding and it doesn't interest them anymore. And so what do you end up with? An incredibly bland, sterile, boring literary landscape. That's great if you happen to be a white, liberal, suburban woman, I guess, but like anyone else is just kind of screwed now.
I would assume that that's the latest. So like I know that it goes like television is a little quicker, movies take about 3 years. So you're getting politics from a while ago. I would assume books is even further back because the process of publishing is so much longer than.
It's not really. Like if you consider how long it takes to create a movie, you're probably talking like 3 years from idea to actually like premiere. With books, it's probably a year. And that's accelerated quite a bit. Like when I first started, it was like probably 18 months to 2 years from starting to write your book to actually getting published. Now it's like a year. It's much faster.
Than I thought it was.
Yeah, so in some ways it reacts quicker. I mean, it's still a ridiculously antiquated industry in a lot of ways. Like deals are done like it's still the 1960s or something. Like it's all just handshake agreements and stuff. But it can react quicker, and it's because all the big publishers, certainly in the UK, all the big publishers, all the big agencies are concentrated in places like London. It's super progressive, super left wing. And just as Echo Chamberlain described in his video, it's essentially all going to be dominated at every level, probably by women, and that's the setup of the industry.
I guess I'll just go down the list now, and if
Campbell Patterson for an ass $2. Do you guys have plans for BSUP 50?
Where are we now?
Now you're under pressure. It happens whenever you hit a landmark.
We don't actually have anything planned for BSUP 50. I'm actually putting together a really interesting way of doing the end of the year, though, because that's what we did last year when we went through the whole year. Just know that I'm constantly working behind the scenes. I know it seems like I don't do much, but.
So if you ask next week, Dark Owl will have a very compelling answer for you as to what we have planned.
Well, I've already asked some people. And some other people I still have to ask on how I wanted. I mean, I could tell you what I'm planning on doing. I want to bust it up into 4 different panels. Ooh. And do quarters of the year, but I need to talk to all the various panels first. I know that one of the ones, I'll even say it because I've talked to 2 of the people. I'm trying to get one of the panels to be EFAP. So
okay,
yeah. So
that sounds fun.
Melvin Deeply for $2 fake bucks. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is Glee.
Okay.
All right. No dice for $4.99. We need a BSUP on the OG Gundam trilogy.
Something tells me I would be the only person on this panel with even a slight bit of interest in that one, so I suspect it won't happen.
I'd do it.
Oh, does that mean we have to watch fucking Double Zeta though? That's not great. That's quite dodgy, in fact. Maybe not.
Oh, actually, speaking of which.
Oh.
Well, that is
$25. Platoon, it's a bit late. I appreciate you talking about Gundam and Zeta Gundam in your Acolyte review. My question, have you ever seen Double Zeta? Yeah. I thought it was cartoonish at first, but course corrected by the end. Yeah, the Acolyte was so compelling that I decided to go on a long tangent about old Gundam, which is just so much better in every conceivable way. I have, I think, seen Double Zeta once a long time ago, and I don't remember much about it except that it was dodgy. So yeah, no other opinions on that. I'd have to rewatch it.
Another one directed at Platoon. It's almost like it's his channel or something.
I know. Of Astora, $5. Platoon, I'm making a custom ringtone and would greatly appreciate it if you said the beans have awakened in a serious matter. Thank you. The beans have awakened. There you go.
Wait, hold on. There was laughing going on. Let's everybody be quiet for this. This is for a ringtone.
The beans have awakened. I don't know what that's for. If it turns out to be racist, I disavow it.
ZG for $20. Finally caught the show live. Glad to see you all in the drinker. Cheers. Cheers to you, my friend.
Good to
Thank
be here.
you.
M8566 for $5. Did you guys hear about the latest Wicked drama? Yes.
There's more drama about Wicked?
Well, this one's so silly. So
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the previous one wasn't silly at all, right?
Well, this one's just, of course, like just so they put a website, wicked.com, on the back of the children's toys, and that goes to a different website, or that goes to a very particular website, one that children should not go to.
I think that's brilliant that they did that. Like,
it's great.
How did they not know?
It's internationally as well, isn't it? I think some people in the UK checked their own versions, and it's like every single one in every single country has the same website printed on the back. I don't know how much money they've spent on that. I don't know why someone didn't check it, but
okay, I'm compelled.
Dark Arrow going to wicked.com. Do not share your screen, whatever you do.
Do you need 5 minutes to yourself, Dark Arrow?
I'm checking on my phone. Don't worry. That's verifying that I'm a human. So that's never a good sign.
And over 18 years of age.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. Makes sense. I'll save that for later.
Nails for $1.99. Watched Mission Impossible Final Reckoning teaser. Why, Tom? Why?
Why?
I haven't watched it yet.
I didn't know there was a trailer.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just came out today.
Oh dear.
Yeah, I like how it started out as Dead Reckoning Part 2, and now it's just Final Reckoning.
Final Reckoning.
Trying to distance itself from
Yeah.
My favorite name that pops up.
Richard Shaft for $6 fake bucks. Wukong is based on Journey to the West, where the Monkey King goes to collect Buddha's writings. You can also see influences of it in Dragon Ball. All right. Professor R2, a member for 18 months, says it's the hope that kills you.
I think that was in regards to you having hope.
Yeah, I like it. I'm looking forward to Fantastic Four. Richard Shaft, member for 15 months. Dark Hour. This name or Seymour Richards?
You got to stick with Richard Shaft. That is the best name. I have a love for any like funny name that pops up in a funny name that pops up in, well, I don't know, maybe, but whenever like someone who super chats and it's a funny name, I love it.
Dunkosaurus Flex for $5 again.
That's a
love
great
you
name.
guys. Yeah. Love you guys. Listening to Platoon while playing farming sims has become my new psychotherapy. By the way, you inspired me to get off my ass and write again.
I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, you could put my Acolyte video on, like the compilation one, and you would probably get through an entire harvest season in real time before that's finished. So always happy to provide music for the seasons.
J-Mac for $20. With the Penguin ending, what were your thoughts of the season as a whole? My wife and I genuinely enjoyed watching it. I feel like it isn't a masterclass of television, but TV has been so barren. So it's really been raised. It's really been raised.
It's really been raised.
I was like, why am I not reading this right? Oh, it's like, what the fuck?
We had a slide for Penguin, so I'll pull it up for this.
There you go. It's a nice looking slide as well. Yeah, those last couple of episodes, man, that was some good shit right there. In terms of like exploring his character in more depth, wow, you get to see another side to him, shall we say. And yeah, I was pretty satisfied with how it all wrapped up. So I like this show. It's been very enjoyable.
I haven't seen the last episode, but I've thoroughly enjoyed everything that the series is progressing to. I think it's just the character-driven storytelling that we've been craving for the past few years, done right. And in many ways, I think, the Penguin is so much better than the Batman. I know that Cynic might disagree with that, but
I haven't finished the show yet, so I can't speak on it yet.
I think I do actually like it more than the Batman. That's the interesting thing. I think Penguin's a much more interesting character here. Well, definitely way more than he was in the movie, but arguably he's more interesting than Bruce Wayne was in the movie as well, which is kind of crazy when you think about it.
He's got so much depth, and they've had so much more time to play with his character and his history, and what's driving him, which we didn't really see in the Batman.
I mean, the Batman was like 9 hours long, so they had plenty of time to explore Batman. I think this is in regards to Arcane.
Jaden175 for 100 squiggles. I'd say season 2, Act 1 got to the same level of achievement as season 1, Act 1. I think it'll become more cohesive after Act 2 and 3 come out.
I would respectfully say that answer contradicts itself, because you did not need to wait for Acts 2 and 3 of season 1 or Act 1 of season 1 to cohere. I mean, I understand people really like it. I just don't think it's anything like as strong. I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's anything like as strong as the opening of season 1. And if it were, I don't think we'd have to be sitting here saying it will make sense later, probably.
I do agree that Acts 2 and 3 of season 1 do help Act 1 a lot, but it's not required. Like the actual story of the first 3 episodes is fine the way it is. Like if it just stopped right there, it would have been a complete little story. So
Mega Spidey Man for $2 fake bucks. Fave Pixar film or films and why? First Toy Story.
I was gonna say, should we put like a no Toy Story on this one, because that's kind of everybody's favorite.
Did Pixar do Up?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think that'd probably be one of my picks.
I love Cars. I always
Cars
like the
is good
original
fun.
Cars. Yeah.
I like Wall-E.
Yeah, well, he's great fun.
I go for Incredibles. That was Pixar, wasn't it? Goodo.
Yeah, that's another great one too. Yeah. Cynic. You can't pick Toy Story. We're four on
Story
one.
2.
Okay, fine. It's got to be lame.
John Gates for $5. They thought people wanted to silence misinformation and hate, a la rewriting Ripley, but people were more fearful of censorship and rejected.
I'm guessing that's when we were talking about the Hollywood politics stuff. That's my guess for that one.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the most infuriating things about that is the whole focus on so-called misinformation and disinformation, which tends to be the top concern of people who spend the most time spreading it. I'm quite happy to see those people lose. Like, all information has always been incredibly hard to verify, and the best way of verifying it is just to have other people checking it for you, as opposed to delegated official fact checkers and people telling you that you're not allowed to say something because they think it's a lie, when really they just haven't read properly.
I wonder how things would have played out if Elon Musk hadn't bought Twitter, because I think that's had such a massive impact on the entire climate online. It's kind of crazy once you realize, like, it's people don't actually all think this one way. It's just like everyone was too afraid to actually be able to say what they wanted to say, because they would just get shadow banned or just straight up demonetized and deplatformed if they said the wrong thing. So yeah, it's kind of interesting once you remove those restrictions.
There was definitely how to put this. This was a presidency that was really one on memes, and it's because the memes were more balanced. They weren't just all like, every time something happened, it was kind of funny on both sides. Everyone just, so it wasn't like with the whole garbage truck thing, for instance, that was hilarious. That would have probably had Elon not bought Twitter, they would have really steered that narrative differently. So that's what I would say.
Where to Wander for $19.99. Platoon. In my opinion, Tron Legacy took inspiration from Genesis, or maybe it's a reimagining of the Abrahamic Christian mythology of God, his fallen creation, Satan, his son, and the chosen people. Do you see this or nah?
Yeah, up to a point. I mean, it's a trope that's, I mean, you're right. It's certainly found in the Abrahamic tradition. It's not unique to it, but the idea that, the creation turns against the creator is fairly common. It's that sort of Luciferian idea. So in that analogy, you would have Flynn as, I suppose, God, the creator, and you would have what the fuck is the villain's name in Legacy? Whatever young CG Jeff Bridges' name is would be Lucifer in that setting, who wants to do as his best by his father's vision, but aspires to create for himself and is therefore cast down through arguably no fault of his own because it's in his nature. So yeah, you can see that. It's there are some interesting thematic ideas in that movie, to be sure. I think it slightly gets lost in some of the techno babble, but it's not without merit.
Okay, just nice quick one.
Matthew for a North Korean $50. Art the Clown versus Michael Myers. Who wins?
This has got shades of Halloween special for open bar. I don't even
Art
know
the
how they'd
Clown
interact
comes
with each
back to
other.
life. Yeah, well, Art comes back to life, so I mean,
Yeah,
win
and so does
eventually.
Michael Myers. So it's just like they're going to keep fighting for all eternity.
So it's a stalemate draw. They'll just fight forever. It's the grand unweaving conflict of the universe is Art the Clown and Michael Myers.
Michael Myers
so.
has seniority, though.
True.
Takes the cake. Common people for $5 this is probably the smartest panel I've watched so far, and Cynic is here too. Yes, sir.
Usually, I'm the one that gets punched in those ones, so I'm very happy whoever sent that. We kind of already touched on this one, but I'll highlight it anyway.
Seki Jokes 451 for $2 Brief thoughts on the first 3 episodes of Arcane season 2.
Yeah, I think we've really covered that. It's an okay start, but not an excellent one. So hopefully it will get better. I might have also rewatched it in a bad mood. Who knows? I just think it could be stronger than it is, and hopefully will be redeemed by later, stronger episodes.
Yeah, I think when compared to other shows, it's absolutely fine. But when you're comparing it to the first season, it does pale by comparison. But yeah, hoping that it gets better as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Because it's almost got an impossible task because it is following on from such a brilliant piece of fiction. So if you do compare it to most other shows that are coming out, that it's leagues above, even with all its flaws. It's trying to clear an incredibly high bar, and understandably will struggle to do that.
Indeed.
John Gates. Well, come on, show us the website they advertised.
I don't want to get Platoon in trouble.
That's how you demonetize your stream right there.
It's not my stream, but I don't want to piss off Platoon. Yeah. He's AI. He'll hack all my shit.
Dungosaurus Flex with the best name became a YouTube member here on Platoon.
I beg to differ. This might be my new favorite name.
Oh boy. Richard Throbbin for $2. Someone mentioned funny names.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's Richard Shaft again. He just has two accounts. Let's see. Trying to go through these quickly. So
Detox for $4.99. Recently watched Deepwater Horizon. Thought it was really good. Do you guys have any thoughts on it?
I quite enjoyed it. It's fine as a disaster movie. Kurt Russell's in it, from what I recall.
Kurt Russell. Can't go wrong with those two.
Not exactly a complex story, but it's not really meant to be. So yeah, I was fine with it.
Smilex for $2 penguins are nature's fleshlights.
Wow.
Willing or unwilling, who knows?
Slide.
It is true. It's that deep cut law for sea otters is that they look really cute, but I think they are one of the species that does indeed rape baby penguins to death. So yeah, you see them holding hands and you think, cutest animal in the world, but you don't want to look any deeper than that.
Yeah, dolphins are like that as well, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Fucking evil.
John Gates for $2 got my Arcane Season 1 Steelbook Blu-ray by physical.
Absolutely.
No dice for $4.99. I meant the 3 moves made of the first season.
That's movies, and that's about the Gundam. That's what that was.
Oh, okay. Well, that would be more tolerable. Yeah, but then again, you could just watch all of the first season. All the glorious random filler content that the good old-fashioned 50-odd episode season of an anime show used to have.
Yeah, they that was a thing that animes used to do too. They used to like chop them up into smaller movies with a lot of the filler taken out. Yeah, I remember that. I remember the good old days.
Ed Song for $5. Platoon, what is your opinion on where there is a whip, there is a way? Pun on where there is a whip, there is a will. References Lord of the Rings, 1980.
I do not understand the reference. Would be my take, I think. Sorry, can't help you there.
I'll pull it back up just in case you got to read it. But
what is your opinion on where there is a whip, there is a way? Pun on where there is a whip, there is a what? No, I'm still confused. It's where there's a will, there's a way. That's the saying. But yeah,
and this
no,
is
can't help
referencing
you.
the Lord of the Rings animated movie from 1980.
Oh God, yeah, my brain is not keeping up with the very many interlocking parts of that reference.
Yeah. As they say, there's a lot to unpack with that one.
M8566 for $5. Plutes, more gaming streams when your commentary is quite entertaining.
Thank you. When I can, I did try and do one on election night, and it killed my PC for some reason. It's fine now, but it tried to yeet itself from life. So I don't know. I'd like to do more, but every time I think I have a minute, I don't. So I need more time, and then I will do more. At some point in the future, there will be more, is the answer.
How do you get on with the whole like multitasking aspect of it? Like you've got to pay generally quite a lot of attention to the game so that you don't just constantly die, but you also have to keep an eye on your chat and you have to respond to supers and all the other gubbins that comes with it. Like it's something
I've only ever done two as well, because it's not always the easiest thing to do, but luckily I was playing Dragon Age the Veilguard, so all I was having to do was mash the square button. So it's not a huge amount of attention you have to pay for that one.
Yeah.
Here's some clarification on that quote.
Oh.
Ed Song. Oh, you can read it, Platoon. Yeah, go ahead.
The whip quote pains. The whip quote pains that the orcs I'm already confused. Sorry. The whip quote pains that the orcs sympathetically, as they are being forced to fight for Sauron, after being wound up, orcs attacked with, I think that's pleasure.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's supposed to be paints. The whip quote paints that the orcs are sympathetic. Orcs sympathetically. Yeah, this is.
They're being forced to fight for Sauron. They're sympathetic because they're forced to fight for Sauron. I'm sorry.
I love super chats that are like a fucking Silent Hill puzzle that you've got to slowly like piece together. What was the hidden intent behind this?
Okay, we got a few more.
Adult human female for $20. Platoon, in your first Rings of Power video, you declared war on shit writing. So I wrote a screenplay based on Norwegian folklore. So far I've reached the final and semi-final in 4 screenwriting competitions. Thank you for inspiring me.
Damn, well done. Glad to hear it. It must be great. Yeah, that's exactly the approach that we were saying. Yeah, Disney should take. Look for great old folklore and make your own great story out of it. And if you're doing that well with the competitions, I'd say you've definitely got something going on there.
William Shatner mouth for $10. I have a joke for Platoon. I'm so old. When I read The Lord of the Rings, it was still being printed on the last of the Endwives. Fairly sure it's original and mine.
I do understand. That's very mean to the Endwives. That's a dark joke.
They just wanted gardens, in order. And then they just kind of walked off in the huff.
And then they were killed by Sauron because the men were not there to protect them. Well, the Ents weren't there to protect them. They were all turned into paper, yes, in order that secret plans could be written down on a piece of parchment that Galadriel can discover in a library several thousand years later. And then they become part of Rings of Power. It's a terrible fate.
Our friend Not Brian for $10. In a post-Biden world, how will the perilous geopolitical position we'll find ourselves in be affected by Melvin Deeply's hideously misguided opinion of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Brian and Melvin are paying to throw shade at each other in super chats. I like it. Keep the argument coming, guys.
Platoon, you want to read that one?
Can do. Rolando A. Ramirez for $20. Hey guys, I just learned from Smash JT that the voice actor for Jin Sakai is an idiot that doesn't know how to read or reason with US politics. Sad, sad day. You may need to remind me who Jin Sakai is. Does anyone know?
Sounds familiar.
It does. I'm sure I should know the answer to that.
Oh, is that from Ghost of Tsushima?
Jin Sakai. Oh, yeah, it is. You're right. Yeah, I have not
Yeah,
played that yet.
I got a thing right. There we go.
That means you haven't been drinking enough.
Yeah, like my mind's still vaguely functional.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Seki Jokes 451 for £5. Arcane Season 2 so far has the shape of Jilko for pervs, Echo being racist against refugees, and a moment of domestic violence with the lesbian couple.
Yep.
I mean, the last bit I can confirm is kind of true. Grendel Vivat has gifted 50 Little Platoon memberships. Thank you very much, sir, and welcome to all those members.
That might explain why my phone told me I'm a member of your channel now.
Oh, welcome to the channel, Darkar. Jokeable Butts 426. If the Truman Show was good and real, would you watch?
No.
No, it's just reality television.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really weird to I would feel really wrong watching something like the Truman Show, knowing that someone's life is fake and they don't know it. That would it's funny as a movie, but I think it's a real life thing. It would be terrifying.
Yeah, you know what? I think it would be like interesting for novelty value for like a couple of days, and I think a lot of people would just lose interest because like his life is just mundane and normal, isn't it? It's not like anything crazy happens to him for the most part.
Well, in Truman Show, they do manufacture things that happen to him to make it more interesting when it gets boring. They'll have because they control the weather, they control, the cast, so they can, none of the cast are his real family, so they can change the narrative as they go along. I just think it would be really like fucked up to watch. Like I don't think anybody would get any joy out of it. You'd just be like, this guy thinks this is real. And it's one left, I guess. I mean, Cynic, did you have an opinion on that? Since you just came back?
I didn't even hear what you're talking about, honestly.
Would you watch if the Truman Show was real? Would you watch it?
Oh God, that's an interesting question.
I think there's a moral dilemma to it.
Yeah, I'd probably check it out for a second. I am on Twitter after all. You can't, when you're scrolling by and certain things pop up in your algorithm, like, you know how many times I've watched someone die in the past year and I didn't ask for it? I was just scrolling and I was like, oh God.
Snuff. And the last super chat.
David Gannon for $20. I mentioned the 1980s Lord of the Rings song in an open bar. A line in the song is the orcs singing, "We don't want to go to war today," but the Lord of the Whip says, "Nay, nay, nay."
That can't be a real line.
It's
surely.
It's the one time I feel like I really should have seen the 1980s film and I haven't seen it. I'm missing all of the glorious whip references.
That line is so shit. It should be in Rings of Power.
Season 3, there's still time.
So, well, I mean, there's supposed to be 5 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's supposed to be a Rey movie as well for Star Wars, so a lot of things are supposed to happen.
But that was all of the super chats.
Cracking. Well then, I think that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. It's time only now to plug whatever you've got coming up. Drinker, thank you very much for coming on. What's coming up with you? What's coming out?
Well, I'm going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan for the Comic-Con there this weekend. So that's the big thing that I've got coming up. And in terms of stuff on my channel, the Critical Drinker and Critical Doggo plushies have got like 2 or 3 days left where you can pre-order them. So if you're thinking about doing it, now is the time. So the link is on my most recent video if you're wanting to take a look.
Hold on. I just saw something here. Someone said that we missed their super chat, and it was TGV Monster. Did we might have, I think we answered some of his earlier, though. It might have been in that. I know that
I see some here. Maybe that you just don't. I don't know.
I don't see no, I don't see any more.
I just assumed we went through them.
It's not the end of the show. We have more super chats.
Not.
to go.
We have some super chats to read. Sorry. Let's go through them real quick though.
Yeah, I don't have any on my end. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard.
TGB Monster for $2. Hi everyone. Even you, Dark Hour. Howdy, howdy.
I couldn't see that. I'm sorry.
Again for another 5. Alien movie idea. A male military grade synth that is made to be the perfect soldier, and the company send him to a remote planet full of xenomorphs.
He get torn apart.
Well, they wouldn't even know to attack him because they only
Yeah.
attack things that they can use as potential hosts. So they might just leave him alone.
Of the 7 kingdoms for $1.99, these last 2 Penguin episodes got so fucking dark.
Yeah.
TGB Monster gifted a membership.
Thank
And-
you. Unless you gifted it to yourself, in which case, you selfish bastard.
And he also sent in a $5 super chat. Culture is healing. 2024 is the year. Woke died, but don't let your guard down. The final is coming, but even if they go crazy, let them.
Yeah, I mean, we can hope. We can hope. Although the re from 2016 is still being felt to this day, so it might be a little while yet.
Tai Fung, a member for 20 months, saw Conclave this weekend because couldn't find juror number 2. Was fine enough until a really odd, out of place, and plot hole that upended the movie for me. I'll charitably give it a 6 out of 10.
I have not seen it.
TVG Monster. TGV Monster, I'm sorry. I can't see them on my end for some reason. It was not my fault. Blame StreamYard.
There's only a couple left. Campbell Patterson for an ass $5. Jesus, all these new Star Wars announcements, ship products, and its overall declining reputation. I wish it had ended in 1983.
Don't we all?
Skippy ZK for $2. Never seen Windy City Heat. It's like Truman Show.
I have not.
I'm not. David Gannon for $2. I swear that line is really in the 1980 Lord of the Rings. Well, shit.
That's been bumped down my to watch list in response to that.
Yeah.
Still there, but
I think that's at the top of my list now. I need to make sure that that's real.
And there was a starred message, and it's from Frank Dunesbert. He said, the drinkers who join on the show every Monday when he can, he really adds to it.
Well, I add numbers to it, like, because I'm another person on the panel. I don't know if I add any, like, intelligence or humor or anything, but I try.
oh, absolutely you do. And you're not a busy person. You're absolutely free every Monday evening.
You know what? Honestly, I'm just
Yeah.
whiling away my days here, just like looking for stuff to do.
And one more came in. John Gates for $5 more. Drinker, if you plan to keep stopping by for cons in America, please consider Steel City Con around Pittsburgh 3 times a year, and you'd be a welcome guest.
Cool, thanks, man. Never been to Pittsburgh before, so I'll keep it in mind.
As a Baltimore Ravens fan, I thoroughly suggest not going to Pittsburgh, but that will only make sense to one person on this panel, I think.
Right here, on the assumption that is the end of the show.
No, but
Drinker,
another
we-
one came in.
Oh no.
This is what they'll do now. They're just going to toy with you.
John the man good for $5. So now that Vilgard sucks, what's the plan for gaming now? How would you guys do gaming now? Now what would you bring back?
Game you'd bring back.
I would settle for just new games. They're fun.
Yeah. That would be
I mean,
good.
yeah, they're still getting, we're still getting good ones. Like Silent Hill 2 remake, I thought was pretty good. Stellar Blade was good fun. We can get it.
Yeah, Star Wars Outlaws. It's all looking rosy.
Yeah.
So yes, drinkies, yes, plushies and Comic Cons. Do you still get jet lag from all these Comic Cons, or is that like a thing of the past these days?
Yeah, I can usually sleep on the way home, so it's not too bad now. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm handling it.
Good stuff. I get this wrong every time. Niat or Nyat? Which
You got
one?
it the first time.
Which one did I say first?
Niat.
I did. I promise I'll remember it one day. I'm just terrible with names. Thank you for coming on. What is coming up with you?
Yeah, always a pleasure jumping on BSUP. Thank you for having me on. And it's fantastic to meet the Critical Drinker for the first time. Going forward, I'm working on a video on Heretic, a movie that I highly recommend. It's got a fantastic script. That should be out in a few days. And I'm going to be on Diabolical Souls Wednesday and Thursday, covering Genndy Tartakovsky's animated Clone Wars and Arcane Episode 1 with Platoon. And on Saturday evening, we're doing Alien 3 on Movie Nights with Niat, which I think is featuring Dark Hour as one of the panelists.
I believe I'm supposed to be on that one. I will double check. When is that?
Saturday evening. But we can sort
Okay,
that out.
if I get back home in time, yes, I will definitely jump. I'll let you know.
Good stuff. Yes, I will be seeing you for the Arcane stream on Thursday. Looking forward to that. Dark Hour, the gayest producer. What's coming up with you?
First of all, realistic delinquent for $279 California dollars Encore. I literally just released my last video on Agatha All Along. So anybody out there who wants to go watch me tear that apart, please do. It was I have a feeling that no one really cared about the show when it was on, so odds are it's probably not going to get too many views now. But I mean, but other than that, not really sure what my next review is. I haven't decided how I'm going to approach the Gladiator and Wicked coming out at the same time, because last time I tried to do 2 reviews at the exact same time, it didn't go very well. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that, but Two Hose continues, and we have on the 24th of this month, because we had to cancel the most recent one, but we have we're going to be doing Temple of Doom with Rags is going to be on that one. So, and Greg Owen is also on that one. So people actually enjoy watching are on my show.
Good stuff. Cynic, what's coming up for you?
I am releasing a video this week. It's at some point this week. Yeah.
So you're releasing some video at some point.
Some point.
Probably this week.
Probably.
Okay.
Yep.
Any more information you'd like to share, or is that all we're getting?
That's it.
Fantastic. It'll be a surprise. Can't wait. And oh no. John Gates for $5. Filibuster them. Don't let them leave. Read all of the County Monte Cristo out loud before you go, please, or something. It's a good
You're
book.
going to have to pay a lot more than $5 for that shit.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is where you have to make a quick exit before someone else can send a super chat now.
That's a really good plan. I think we'll do that. I will have a video on something at some point soon, probably Gladiator, maybe, who knows. See you later. Bye.
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 Timing.